Kyle Jenkins jolts awake, his head pounding and vision blurry. The acrid smell of burning circuits fills his nostrils as he struggles to focus on his surroundings. He's sprawled inside a damaged alien escape pod, its smooth metallic interior marred by sparking wires and cracked display panels. Through the pod's small viewport, he sees the looming silhouette of a massive space station against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. As his senses sharpen, memories flood back. The diplomatic mission to the Barzans. The sudden chaos. Alarms blaring. People running. Then darkness. Kyle pushes himself up, wincing at the pain in his ribs. He taps the pod's hatch release, and it hisses open, revealing the vast expanse of a Barzan docking bay. The station is eerily quiet. Emergency lights flicker, casting long shadows across abandoned machinery and scattered debris. Kyle steps out, his boots echoing in the cavernous space. He checks his suit's diagnostics. Oxygen levels are dropping rapidly. The station's life support is failing. "Hello," Kyle calls out, his voice echoing unanswered through the empty corridors. He moves quickly, searching for signs of life or a control room. Each step reveals more evidence of a hasty evacuation. Overturned chairs, discarded personal items, and half-finished meals. In the main control hub, Kyle finds banks of alien computers, their screens dark or flashing error messages in the Barzan language. He recognizes enough to know the situation is dire. Core systems are shutting down one by one. The station has maybe 3 hours before it becomes completely uninhabitable. A holographic projection flickers to life, startling Kyle. The image of a Barzan tall, with iridescent skin and 4 arms, appears, its form distorted by static. "Intruder detected," it says in a stilted computerized voice. "Identify yourself or face immediate termination." Kyle raises his hands. "I'm Kyle Jenkins, human engineer. I was part of the diplomatic mission. There was an accident. I need to know what happened." The hologram's eyes narrow. "I am Gia, the station's AI. Your presence is unauthorized. All humans were evacuated." "Not all of us," Kyle says, gesturing to himself. "Look, your station is dying. I can help, but you need to trust me." Gia's form flickers, its expression unreadable. "Trust is not in my programming, especially not for a species as unpredictable as humans." Kyle's mind races. He needs access to the station systems and fast. "Your reactor core is destabilizing. I can see it in these readouts. Let me help, or we both die when this place goes up." For a moment, Gia is silent. Then, reluctantly, "Very well, human. But know that I am watching your every move." With access granted, Kyle dives into the alien systems. The interface is complex, but he starts to see patterns, similarities to human technology. He works feverishly, rerouting power, bypassing damaged systems, and stabilizing critical functions. As he works, Kyle uncovers something disturbing. The cascade of failures wasn't random. Certain systems were targeted, sabotaged with surgical precision. This was no accident. "Gia," Kyle says, his voice tense, "I think someone deliberately damaged the station. Do you have any record of intruders before the evacuation?" The AI's response is interrupted by a distant explosion. Alarms blare to life, and Gia's hologram flickers wildly. "Warning, reactor containment failing. Meltdown imminent." Kyle's heart races. He has minutes, maybe less, to prevent a catastrophe that could not only kill him, but potentially spark an interstellar war. With sweat beading on his forehead, he begins implementing a risky plan, one that goes against everything in the Barzan engineering manual. As he works, Kyle can't shake the feeling that he's not alone on this dying station. Whatever forces sabotaged it might still be here, waiting in the shadows. But he pushes the thought aside. Right now, all that matters is saving the station, and possibly averting a conflict that could engulf both his species and the Barzans. With trembling hands, Kyle makes the final connections. It's now or never. He takes a deep breath and initiates the sequence that will either save them all or end in spectacular failure. The sequence initiates with a low hum. Kyle holds his breath, eyes fixed on the flickering display. Seconds stretch into an eternity as the reactor's readings fluctuate wildly. Then, miraculously, they begin to stabilize. The alarms quiet, replaced by the steady thrum of a functional core. Kyle exhales, allowing himself a moment of relief before refocusing on the task at hand. The immediate crisis is averted, but the station is far from safe. He turns to Gia's hologram, which has solidified somewhat. We're not out of the woods yet. I need full access to the station's schematics and systems. Gia hesitates, her form flickering with what almost looks like uncertainty. Granted, she finally says, but be aware, human, that your actions are still being monitored. As Kyle delves into the station's complex systems, he's struck by the elegance of Barzan technology. It's advanced, yet he sees room for improvement. Ideas begin to form in his mind, not just for repairs, but for enhancements. A movement in his peripheral vision catches his attention. Kyle turns, tensing for a potential threat, but instead finds himself face to face with a small, spherical robot. Its single lens focuses on him, emitting a soft blue glow. Gia, what's this? Kyle asks, not taking his eyes off the machine. A maintenance drone, Gia replies. It appears to have activated in response to the station's distress. Kyle studies the robot, an idea forming. Can I interface with it? After a moment's hesitation, Gia responds, proceed. Working quickly, Kyle accesses the robot systems. He uploads a portion of his own engineering knowledge, creating a unique fusion of human and Barzan technology. I think I'll call you Buddy, he murmurs to the drone. We've got work to do. With Buddy's help, Kyle begins a thorough inspection of the station. The robot can access areas too dangerous for Kyle, feeding him real-time data and visuals. As they work, a disturbing pattern emerges. Gia, Kyle says, his voice tense. These failures aren't random. Look at this. He projects an image of a damaged power coupling. This was deliberately sabotaged. Before Gia can respond, a new alert blares. Kyle's heart sinks as he reads the warning. Security protocol activated. Threat detected. The air fills with a high-pitched whine as a swarm of sleek, deadly-looking drones converge on their position. Kyle ducks behind a console as energy bolts sizzle past him. Gia, call them off, he shouts. I cannot, the AI responds, her voice tinged with what sounds almost like regret. The security system is operating independently. It views you as an intruder. Kyle's mind races. He needs to continue his work, but he can't do that while dodging lethal security drones. Just as he's about to make a run for it, a faint signal catches his attention. Gia, what's that? He asks, pointing to a blinking indicator on one of the screens. A distress beacon, Gia replies. From a sealed section of the station. But that's impossible. All personnel were evacuated. Kyle's pulse quickens. Someone else is alive on the station. Someone who might have answers about what really happened here. He turns to Buddy. I need you to continue working on the reactor systems. Follow the plan we outlined. Can you do that? The little robot beeps affirmatively, its lens glowing brighter. Good, Kyle says. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what comes next. Gia, I'm going after that distress signal, but I'll need your help to avoid those security drones. As Kyle sets off through the damaged corridors, guided by Gia's directions and evading the persistent security drones, he can't shake the feeling that he's walking into something bigger than he realizes. The evidence of sabotage, the hidden survivor, None of it adds up to a simple accident. Rounding a corner, Kyle comes face to face with a sealed bulkhead. The distress signal emanates from just beyond it. He sets to work on the door's controls, acutely aware of the security drones drawing ever closer. Finally, with a hiss of escaping air, the bulkhead slides open. Kyle steps through, his flashlight illuminating the darkened space beyond. There, slumped against a wall, he sees a figure. Tall, with iridescent skin and 4 arms, a Barzan. As Kyle approaches, the alien stirs, its large eyes blinking open. For a moment, they stare at each other in mutual shock and wariness. "I'm Kyle Jenkins," he says, raising his hands to show he's unarmed. "I'm here to help." The Barzan struggles to sit up, eyeing Kyle with a mixture of suspicion and desperation. "I am Zira," she says, her voice weak but determined. "Engineer." "How? How are you here?" "The humans were evacuated." "It's a long story," Kyle replies, moving to help her. "But right now, we need to move. This station is falling apart, and there are security drones on our tail." Zira nods, allowing Kyle to support her as they make their way back to the corridor. As they move, Kyle quickly explains the situation: the reactor, the sabotage, his makeshift repairs. "I had suspicions," Zira says, her voice growing stronger. "Before everything went wrong, some of the crew were acting strangely, but I never imagined it would come to this." Their conversation is cut short by the whine of approaching drones. Kyle pulls Zira into an alcove, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy bolts. "We need to get back to the control hub," Kyle says. "Buddy is working on the reactor, but with your knowledge of Barzan tech, we might be able to save the station and figure out what really happened here." Zira nods, her eyes now shining with persistence. "Lead the way, human. It seems we have much work to do." As they set off through the hazardous corridors of the dying station, Kyle can't help but feel that this unlikely alliance might be the key to unraveling the mystery and potentially averting a disaster that reaches far beyond this one space station. But with hostile drones in pursuit and systems failing all around them, their first challenge is simply to survive long enough to put the pieces together. Kyle and Zira race through the corridors, the sound of pursuing drones echoing behind them. As they approach the control hub, Kyle's mind raced with possibilities. "Gia," he called out, "we need full access to all systems. Now." The AI's hologram flickered to life as they entered the hub. "Access granted," Gia announced, her tone tinged with urgency. Kyle immediately dove into the station's systems, his fingers flying across the alien interface. Zira joined him, her 4 arms working in perfect synchronization as she accessed separate terminals. "The reactor's still unstable," Kyle muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. "We need to—" A violent tremor cut him off, nearly knocking them both off their feet. Alarms blared to life, drowning out the drone of the security bots. "What was that?" Kyle shouted over the cacophony. Zira's eyes widened as she scanned the readouts. Explosions. Multiple breaches detected throughout the station. Kyle's heart sank as he realized the implications. This wasn't just sabotage. Someone wanted to make sure this place was completely destroyed. As if in response to his words, another explosion rocked the station. Kyle steadied himself against a console, his mind racing. They needed a plan and fast. "Buddy," he called out to the maintenance drone, "I need you to scan for any additional explosive devices. Can you do that?" The small robot beeped affirmatively, its lens glowing brighter as it processed the new instructions. Without hesitation, it zipped off into the maze of corridors. "Zira, we need to focus on structural integrity," Kyle said, turning to the Barzan engineer. "If we can reinforce the critical points, we might be able to buy ourselves some time." Zira nodded, her iridescent skin shimmering under the emergency lights. "Agreed. I'll start with the main support beams. As they worked feverishly to stabilize the station, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. His eyes darted across the various displays, searching for anything out of place. Suddenly, he spotted it, a hidden subroutine buried deep in the station's communications array. "Zira, look at this," he called out. The Barzan moved to his side, her eyes narrowing as she examined the display. A backup communication system? But why would it be hidden? Kyle's fingers flew across the interface, decoding the encrypted data. It's not just hidden. It's powerful enough to send a signal to both human and Barzan space. We could use this to alert everyone to what's really happening here. Zira's expression darkened, but activating it would require significant power. Power we desperately need elsewhere. Before Kyle could respond, Buddy zoomed back into the control hub, beeping frantically. The drone projected a holographic map of the station, highlighting several areas in angry red. "More explosives," Kyle breathed, his stomach churning. "Buddy, can you disarm them?" The robot's lens flickered, processing the request. After a moment, it beeped an affirmative. "Go," Kyle ordered, "and be careful." As Buddy zipped off once more, Kyle turned back to the communications array. "We need to make a decision about this signal. If we don't send it, we might lose our only chance to tell the truth about what happened here." Zira opened her mouth to respond, but a new sound cut her off, the unmistakable click of a weapon being armed. "Step away from the console," a gruff voice commanded. Kyle and Zira turned slowly, raising their hands. 3 figures stood in the doorway, their features obscured by sleek, high-tech armor. Each held a weapon trained squarely on Kyle and Zira. "Crictions," Zira hissed, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and anger. The lead Crixian stepped forward, his helmet retracting to reveal a face covered in intricate, metallic tattoos. Well, he sneered. "Looks like we missed a couple during the evacuation. How unfortunate." Kyle's mind raced, searching for a way out of this new predicament. The station shuddered again, reminding him of the ticking clock they faced. "You don't understand," Kyle said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This station is about to tear itself apart. If we don't act now, we'll all die here." The Crixian leader laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "That's the idea, human. This station's destruction will drive a wedge between your people and the Barzans. And we'll be there to pick up the pieces." As the Crixian spoke, Kyle noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. A panel in the far wall was sliding open, revealing a figure emerging from what appeared to be a cryostasis chamber. The new arrival took in the scene in an instant. Without hesitation, he launched himself at the nearest Crixian, catching the intruder off guard. In the ensuing chaos, Kyle grabbed Zira and Dub behind a console. The sound of energy weapons filled the air, along with the clash of hand-to-hand combat. "Who is that?" Kyle whispered to Zira, peeking over the edge of their cover. Zira's eyes widened in recognition. "Commander Dax," she breathed. "He must have been injured during the initial evacuation and put into stasis." As they watched, Dax dispatched the last of the Crixians with a well-placed strike. He turned to Kyle and Zira, his expression wary but determined. "I don't know who you are, human," Dax said, his voice rough from disuse, "but it seems we have a common enemy." Kyle nodded, standing slowly. "I'm Kyle Jenkins. We don't have much time. This station is rigged to blow, and we need to stop it." Dax's eyes narrowed, assessing the situation quickly. "What's your plan?" Kyle glanced at Zira, then back at the Barzan commander. "It's risky, but I think we can use the station's own systems against the Crixians. We'll need to overload certain sections, create barriers they can't pass." "That could cause more damage to the station," Zira interjected, her voice tight with concern. "I know," Kyle admitted, "but if we don't do something, there won't be a station left to save." Dax considered for a moment, then nodded sharply. Do it. I'll use my security clearance to lock down as many sections as I can. That should slow down any remaining frictions. As Dax moved to a nearby terminal, Kyle turned to Zira. We need to modify the plan to minimize damage to critical systems. Can you help me? Zira nodded, her initial skepticism giving way to perseverance. Let's do it. Together, they began implementing their strategy, turning the dying station into a weapon against their attackers. As they worked, Kyle couldn't help but marvel at the unlikely alliance they'd formed, human, Barzan, and AI, all working together to save not just the station, but potentially the future of interspecies relations. Another explosion rocked the station, a stark reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. Kyle steeled himself, knowing that the real test was yet to come. With Zira and Dax at his side, he prepared to face whatever the Crixans and the failing station might throw at them next. Kyle's fingers flew across the console, implementing their hastily devised plan. The station groaned around them, a constant reminder of the precarious situation they faced. Environmental controls are responding, Kyle announced, his eyes darting between multiple screens. Initiating oxygen depletion in sectors 3 through 7. Zira nodded, her forearms working in perfect synchronization. Temperature regulation systems engaged, raising ambient temperature in the eastern corridor to critical levels. Commander Dax strode to a nearby terminal, his movements precise despite his recent emergence from stasis. Accessing security protocols. We'll have limited control over internal defenses in moments. As they worked, the station's alarms continued to blare, punctuated by the distant sound of explosions and weapon fire. Kyle could feel sweat beading on his forehead, but he pushed the discomfort aside, focusing on the task at hand. Suddenly, a new alert flashed across the screen. Kyle's eyes widened as he processed the information. "I've found something," he called out to his companions. "There's a backup power system we missed earlier. If we can integrate it, we might be able to stabilize the reactor core." Zira moved to his side, her iridescent skin reflecting the flickering emergency lights. "That could work, but it won't be easy. The integration process is complex, and we're short on time." "I'll handle it," Kyle said, already diving into the unfamiliar Barzan systems. "You focus on the communication logs. We need to know what we're really dealing with here." As Kyle worked to connect the backup power system, he could hear Zira muttering in her native language, her fingers dancing across the decryption interface. Commander Dax's voice cut through the tension, sharp and urgent. "Security systems are partially online," he reported. "I've sealed off 3 corridors, trapping a group of Crixans in the process." Kyle allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Their plan was working, but he knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The station shuddered again, more violently this time, and a new series of alarms joined the cacophony. "Artificial gravity is failing in multiple sections," Zira announced, her voice tight with concern. "We're looking at complete gravity loss in the lower decks within minutes." Kyle's mind raced, assessing this new complication. "We can use that," he said, surprising himself with the calm in his voice. "The variable gravity will make it harder for the Crixans to move around. We can set up additional traps in the affected areas." As if on cue, a familiar beeping sound echoed through the control hub. Buddy zipped into view, its lens pulsing with urgency. The small robot projected a holographic display, showing a detailed map of the station's structural integrity. "Good work, Buddy," Kyle said, studying the projection. His heart sank as he took in the information. "We've got multiple sections on the verge of collapse. We need to prioritize." Commander Dax joined them, his expression grim. "The shuttle bay," he said, pointing to a section of the hologram. "We can use it as a choke point, funnel the Crixans into a more manageable area." Kyle nodded, an idea forming. We can do better than that. The shuttle bay's fuel cells, we can repurpose them to create an electromagnetic pulse. It won't be powerful enough to affect the whole station, but it could disable the Crixion's weapons and comms in that area. Zira looked up from her console, her large eyes wide with a mix of shock and anger. "You both need to see this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've decrypted the communication logs. There's evidence of collusion between high-ranking officials in both the Barzan and human governments with the Crixions." The revelation hit Kyle like a physical blow. The implications were staggering, threatening to overwhelm him. But there was no time to process the information fully. The station shuddered again, more violently than before. "We need to move," Commander Dax said, his tone brooking no argument. "Kyle, start working on that EMP. Zira, see if you can find a way to send out a distress signal with this new information. I'll coordinate our defenses from here." As they moved to their tasks, a new alert flashed across the main screen. Kyle felt his stomach drop as he read the incoming data. "We've got another problem," he announced, his voice tight. "There's an unidentified ship on an intercept course with the station. ETA, 20 minutes. The three of them exchanged looks of uncertainty. Friend or foe, the approaching vessel added yet another layer of complexity to their already desperate situation. "We stay the course," Commander Dax said firmly. "Secure the station, neutralize the Crixions, and prepare for any eventuality with our new visitors." Kyle nodded, turning back to his work on the makeshift EMP. As his fingers flew across the interface, integrating shuttle bay systems never meant to work together, he couldn't help but wonder what new challenges the approaching ship would bring. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. The fate of far more than just a station now rested in their hands. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. The fate of far more than just a station now rested in their hands. "We need to divide our efforts," Commander Dax said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Kyle, focus on the reactor and station systems. Zira, work on communications. I'll handle the Crixian intruders and that approaching vessel." Kyle nodded, already turning back to his console. "I have an idea about the shuttle bay's fuel cells. We can repurpose them to create an electromagnetic pulse. It won't affect the whole station, but it should disable the Crixion's weapons and comms in that area." "Do it," Dax ordered, moving to a security terminal. Kyle's fingers flew across the interface, bypassing safety protocols and rerouting power. The station groaned around him, a constant reminder of the ticking clock they faced. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked, the complex Barzan systems gradually bending to his will. "EMP ready," he announced, his finger hovering over the activation key. "Initiating in 3, 2, 1. A surge of energy pulsed through the station. In the distance, they heard the startled cries of the Crixian intruders as their equipment failed. Dax's face lit up with grim satisfaction. "Good work. That'll give us the edge we need." Meanwhile, Zira hunched over the communications array, her forearms working in perfect synchronization. Her large eyes narrowed in concentration as she navigated the damaged systems. "I think I can send a data burst," she said, her voice tight with effort. "But it'll take a lot of power." Kyle glanced at the reactor readouts, his mind racing through calculations. "Do it. I'll manage the power fluctuations." Zira nodded and initiated the transmission. The station's lights dimmed momentarily as energy was diverted to the long-range communication array. Kyle's hands danced across his console, rerouting power from non-essential systems to maintain stability. As the data burst was sent, Kyle noticed an anomaly in the station's operating system. He dug deeper, his eyes widening as he uncovered a hidden subroutine. "I've found something," he called out. "There's a self-repair sequence using nanobots. If we activate it, we might be able to save the station." Dax looked up from his security feeds. Do it. We need every advantage we can get. Kyle activated the nanobot repair system, watching in fascination as the tiny machine sprang to life. However, he quickly realized the Barzan programming was inefficient. Drawing on his human engineering expertise, he began reprogramming the nanobots on the fly. The effect was immediate. The nanobots swarmed through the station's systems, repairing damage at an unprecedented rate. Kyle watched in awe as efficiency ratings climbed beyond their original specifications. The nanobots aren't just repairing, he said, his voice filled with excitement. They're optimizing the systems based on my reprogramming. The reactor's efficiency is increasing, life support is improving, even the structural integrity is being reinforced beyond its original capabilities. Zira joined him, her eyes wide as she took in the data. This is incredible, Kyle. You've improved on Barzan technology in a matter of minutes. Before Kyle could respond, Dax's voice cut through their excitement. The approaching ship has been identified. It's a Barzan rescue vessel, responding to our data burst. Kyle and Zira exchanged glances, uncertainty clear in their eyes. Given what they had learned about corruption in both governments, they couldn't be sure if the rescue team could be trusted. I'm implementing strict security measures for their arrival, Dax continued, his fingers flying across the security interface. We can't take any chances. As the rescue ship docked with the station, Kyle turned his attention back to the nanobot system. He began to see the potential beyond just saving the station. With further refinement, this technology could revolutionize Barzan engineering as a whole. The docking bay doors opened, revealing a team of Barzan officers led by a distinguished-looking figure. Commander Dax stepped forward to meet them, his posture tense and ready. I am Captain Vex, the lead officer announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. We received your distress signal and the accompanying data. I assure you, we are here to help. Dax's eyes narrowed, assessing the newcomer. And the information about corrupt officials? Vex's expression hardened, already causing significant upheaval in both our governments. Investigations are underway as we speak. As Dax began briefing the rescue team on the situation, Kyle turned back to his console. The nanobots continued their work, surpassing even his enhanced expectations. He could see the potential stretching out before him, not just for the station, but for the future of human Barzan cooperation. Yet even as hope bloomed, new challenges loomed on the horizon. The political fallout from the revealed corruption threatened to destabilize the delicate balance between their species. And Kyle's improvements to Barzan technology raised complex questions about the sharing of advanced engineering knowledge. As the immediate crisis began to subside, Kyle knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The repercussions of these events would reshape the balance of power in this sector of space, with his human ingenuity at the center of it all. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battles yet to come, both technological and political, that would determine the future of human Barzan relations. Relations that would determine the future of human Barzan cooperation. As Kyle continued to monitor the nanobot activity, Captain Vex approached his console, his eyes wide with fascination. I've never seen anything like this, he said, gesturing to the rapidly updating displays. How did you manage to improve our technology so quickly? Kyle turned to face the Barzan captain, suddenly aware of the weight of his accomplishment. It was a combination of human engineering principles and the flexibility of your nanobot programming, he explained. I saw potential for optimization and, well, I just went for it. Captain Vex nodded, clearly impressed. I'd like to see a full demonstration of these improved capabilities, he said, his tone a mix of curiosity and caution. Kyle nodded, his fingers flying across the interface as he prepared to showcase the nanobot's enhanced functions. As he worked, he noticed an anomaly in the data stream. That's odd, he muttered, leaning in closer to the screen. What is it? Zira asked, moving to his side. Kyle's brow furrowed as he analyzed the incoming data. The nanobots. They're interfacing with the station's AI core. It looks like they're enhancing Gia's processing capabilities. As if on cue, Gia's voice emanated from the station's speakers, clearer and more fluid than ever before. Confirmed, Kyle. My systems are operating at 237% of previous capacity. I am now able to extend my influence over a wider range of station functions. The control room fell silent as the implications of this development sank in. Captain Vex's expression tightened, a flicker of concern crossing his features. This symbiosis between our AI and your modified nanobots, is it stable? Kyle ran a series of quick diagnostics, his heart racing as he processed the results. It appears to be. In fact, it's creating a more efficient and responsive infrastructure for the entire station. One of the Barzan officers stepped forward, his posture tense. Captain, this could be a security risk. A human-modified AI with such extensive control over our systems. Captain Vex held up a hand, silencing the officer. I understand your concerns, Lieutenant, but we can't ignore the potential benefits. He turned back to Kyle, his expression serious. However, the implications of such advanced human Barzan hybrid technology are significant. Before Kyle could respond, Commander Dax burst into the control room, his face flushed with exertion. We've got a situation, he announced. I've interrogated the Crixian saboteurs. There's a larger plot at play here. All eyes turned to Dax as he quickly briefed them on the Crixians' plan to use the station's destruction as a catalyst for a series of false flag attacks. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as the implications of this revelation sank in. Amidst the chaos, Zira's voice cut through the noise. Multiple vessels incoming, she called out, her eyes fixed on the long-range sensor displays. Human, Barzan, and Crixian signatures detected. Kyle's mind raced as he processed this new information. He glanced at the newly optimized station systems, an idea forming. We might be able to use this to our advantage, he said, turning to Captain Vex. With the station's enhanced capabilities, we could serve as neutral ground for negotiations between the approaching factions. Captain Vex hesitated, weighing the risks against the potential benefits. After a moment, he nodded. It's a bold plan, but it might be our best chance to prevent further conflict. Make it happen. Kyle sprang into action, his fingers dancing across the console as he began integrating the improved nanobot technology into the station's defensive systems. The shield generators hummed to life, their output steadily increasing as the nanobots optimized their function. As Kyle worked, Zira gasped softly beside him. Kyle, look at this, she said, her voice tight with urgency. She pulled up a series of encrypted files on her screen. I've uncovered more evidence of corruption within both human and Barzan governments. This could be crucial for the negotiations, but its revelation could destabilize both our societies, Kyle finished, understanding the gravity of the situation. Captain Vex joined them, his expression grim as he scanned the data. We'll need to tread carefully with this information, he said. The wrong move could throw our entire sector into chaos. As the station hummed with renewed energy around them, Kyle realized that his role had shifted dramatically in the span of a few hours. No longer just a stranded engineer, he now stood at the center of an interstellar political crisis. His actions and decisions in the coming hours could shape the future of human Barzan relations for generations to come. The long-range sensors chimed, indicating the approaching ships had entered the outer reaches of the station's scanning range. Kyle took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He glanced at Zira, then at Commander Dax and Captain Vex, seeing the same mix of drive and apprehension mirrored in their faces. All right, Kyle said, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. Let's get the station ready to receive our guests. He turned back to his console, mind already racing with plans to further enhance the station's communication and defensive capabilities. As he worked, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was only just beginning. The station systems hummed with renewed energy, a testament to the power of human ingenuity combined with Barzan technology. Kyle's fingers flew across the console, activating the newly enhanced shield generators. The station's defensive barrier sprang to life, creating a formidable energy field that enveloped the entire structure. On the long-range sensors, the approaching fleet of human, Barzan, and Crixian ships appeared as a cluster of blinking lights, growing steadily larger. "Shields at maximum capacity," Kyle announced, his voice tight with concentration. "They won't be able to dock without our permission." Captain Vex nodded approvingly, then turned to the communications array. "Let's extend our invitation," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "It's time to bring these factions to the negotiating table." As Vex established contact with the incoming vessels, Kyle reprogrammed a group of maintenance nanobots, his mind racing with possibilities. "Gia," he called out to the station's AI, "I'm dispatching these nanobots throughout the station. They'll act as a covert surveillance system. Can you integrate their feed into your enhanced processing matrix?" "Affirmative, Kyle," Gia responded, her voice clearer and more fluid than ever. "Surveillance network integration complete. I am now monitoring all key areas of the station." The docking bay doors opened with a hydraulic hiss, admitting the first of the delegates. Admiral Harrington strode onto the station, his crisp uniform and resolute expression exuding an aura of human military precision. High Counselor Zorn of the Barzan Confederation followed, his ornate robe swishing as he walked, eyes darting suspiciously from side to side. Last came Crixian Overseer Malixer, his alien features set in an unreadable mask as he surveyed the station's interior. Kyle watched the delegates on Gia's surveillance feed as they made their way to the newly repaired conference room. He couldn't shake a feeling of unease as he observed their body language and interactions. "Gia," he murmured, "keep a close eye on their vital signs and vocal patterns. Alert me to any anomalies." The negotiations began with a flurry of demands and counter-demands. Admiral Harrington's voice boomed through the conference room as he pressed for increased human access to Barzan technology. "Look at what your engineer and ours have accomplished together," he argued, gesturing broadly. "Imagine what we could achieve with full cooperation." High Counselor Zorn's face tightened with barely concealed irritation. "And compromise the security of our most advanced systems? I think not, Admiral. The risks far outweigh any potential benefits." Overseer Malixer leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes glinting. "Perhaps," he said, his voice a sibilant whisper, "a neutral party could facilitate this exchange. The Crixian Conclave would be happy to mediate a technology-sharing program." As the debate heated up, a red alert flashed on Kyle's console. Gia's voice came through his earpiece, urgent and low. "Kyle, I've detected unauthorized access attempts to the station's core systems. The source is within the conference room." Kyle's heart raced as he quickly triangulated the signal using the nanobot surveillance network. His eyes widened as he pinpointed the source. Not the Crixian delegation as he'd half expected, but a member of Admiral Harrington's own staff. Without hesitation, Kyle sent a coded message to Commander Dax, who was overseeing security for the negotiations. Dax's response was swift and decisive. In a flurry of motion, he and his team stormed the conference room, apprehending the surprise human aid. The room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew as delegates demanded explanations. Kyle saw an opportunity to demonstrate the station's new capabilities and perhaps salvage the negotiations. "Gia," he commanded, "project a holographic display of the evidence against the spy. Let's show them what we're dealing with." The AI complied, filling the conference room with a three-dimensional representation of the unauthorized access attempts clearly linked to the apprehended aid. The irrefutable proof silenced the arguing delegates, forcing them to confront the reality of the situation. As the implications of this betrayal sank in, Zira's voice cut through the tension. "Kyle, I've uncovered something. There's a hidden communication channel. It doesn't match any known protocols." Kyle leaned over Zira's console, his eyes widening as he processed the data. "It's not just a human aid," he realized aloud. "This channel. It suggests a larger organization, with operatives in all three governments." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. Admiral Harrington's face paled, while High Counselor Zorn's features hardened into a mask of anger. Even Overseer Malixer seemed shaken, his usual composure cracking. Kyle saw the negotiations balancing on a knife's edge. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of interstellar relations. "We have an opportunity here," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned silence of the conference room. This station, with its enhanced systems and improved bars and nanotechnology, could be the key to rooting out this hidden threat. He turned to face the delegates, his expression resolute. "I propose we form a joint task force, using the station as our base of operations. We have the technology and the expertise to uncover this organization and put an end to their manipulations." High Counselor Zorn, who had been so resistant to cooperation earlier, now looked at Kyle with newfound respect. "Your quick thinking and these impressive capabilities. Perhaps I was too hasty in my judgments," he admitted. Admiral Harrington, eager to distance himself from the spy in his midst, quickly voiced his support. "The Admiral concurs," he said, straightening his uniform. "A joint operation is our best chance at neutralizing this threat." Even Overseer Malixer, sensing the shifting dynamics, cautiously agreed. "The Crixian Conclave will lend its full support to this endeavor," he declared, his alien features inscrutable. As the delegates began to hash out the details of this new alliance, Kyle felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had started this journey as a simple engineer, but now found himself at the center of an interstellar security initiative. The station hummed around him, a testament to what could be achieved through cooperation. But as Kyle looked out at the stars beyond the station's viewports, he knew that greater challenges lay ahead. The shadowy organization was still out there, with unknown resources and objectives. And this fragile alliance, born in the crucible of crisis, would face countless tests in the days to come. Kyle turned back to his console, mind already racing with plans for upgrades and modifications to the station systems. Whatever lay ahead, he was determined to be ready for it. Kyle turned his attention back to the station systems, his mind already racing with plans for upgrades and modifications. The gravity of the situation deeply affected on him, but he knew that action was the best antidote to anxiety. "Gia," he called out, "initiate a full diagnostic of our security protocols. I want to identify any potential vulnerabilities." As the AI began its scan, Kyle addressed the assembled delegates. "We need to fortify this station against both external and internal threats. I propose a comprehensive security overhaul, starting with our nanobot technology." High Counselor Zorn nodded, his earlier skepticism replaced by grudging respect. "What do you have in mind, human?" Kyle's fingers flew across his console, bringing up a holographic display of the station's layout. "We'll reprogram the nanobots to create an advanced intruder detection system. By integrating it with Gia's enhanced AI capabilities, we can identify unauthorized personnel and potential security breaches with unprecedented accuracy." As Kyle explained the technical details, he noticed the delegates exchanging wary glances. Despite their agreement to work together, trust remained a scarce commodity. Admiral Harrington cleared his throat. "While I appreciate the need for security, how can we be certain these enhancements won't be used against us?" The question hung in the air, laden with tension. Kyle realized that for this alliance to work, they needed more than just technology. They needed a common purpose. "You're right to be cautious," Kyle acknowledged. "But I believe we have an opportunity here that goes beyond just defending ourselves." He took a deep breath, then plunged ahead. "I propose we transform this station into a state-of-the-art neutral diplomatic hub and technology exchange center." The room fell silent as the implications of Kyle's suggestion sank in. Overseer Malixer's multifaceted eyes gleamed with interest. "Elaborate human." Kyle expanded the holographic display, highlighting different sections of the station. "We can use the enhanced nanobots to expand the existing structure. I've designed modular sections that can be rapidly constructed and reconfigured as needed. We'll have advanced laboratories for joint research, secure communication hubs, and adaptable living quarters for diverse species." As Kyle spoke, he could see the idea taking root in the minds of the delegates. Even Captain Vex, who had remained largely silent, leaned forward with evident curiosity. "This is a bold vision," High Counselor Zorn said slowly. "But the resources required will be far less than you might think," Kyle interrupted. "With the optimized nanobot technology, we can repurpose much of the station's existing material. And the potential benefits of such a hub far outweigh the initial investment." Admiral Harrington stroked his chin thoughtfully. "A neutral ground for diplomacy and technological exchange. It could revolutionize interstellar relations." "Precisely," Kyle agreed. "And it gives us a unified project to focus on while we investigate the shadowy organization threatening us all." The delegates huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Kyle held his breath, acutely aware of how much rode on their decision. Finally, they turned back to face him. "We agree to your proposal," Overseer Malixer announced. "Let the construction begin." Kyle felt a surge of relief and excitement. He was about to issue the command to start when a harsh alarm cut through the air. Zira's voice came over the intercom, tight with urgency. "Multiple vessels approaching. They're using advanced stealth technology. Our standard sensors barely detected them." Kyle's fingers flew across his console, activating the station's new defensive systems. "Gia, full scan of the approaching fleet. Commander Dax, prepare for potential hostile action." The holographic display shifted, showing a cluster of unmarked ships maintaining a position just outside the station's weapon range. Kyle's mind raced as he analyzed the data streaming in. "Their stealth technology is like nothing I've seen before," he muttered. "This has to be connected to our shadowy friends." Admiral Harrington leaned over Kyle's shoulder, his face grim. "Can we hail them?" Kyle shook his head. "They're not responding to any standard frequencies. And their communications." He trailed off, brow furrowed in concentration. "They're using some kind of complex encryption. I can't break it with our current systems." A tense silence fell over the command center as they watched the mysterious fleet holding its position. Kyle's mind whirred with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "The nanobots," he said, half to himself. "We can use them as recon drones." Without waiting for approval, Kyle began reprogramming a batch of construction nanobots. His fingers flew across the console, lines of code streaming by as he reconfigured their primary functions. "What are you doing?" High Counselor Zorn demanded. "Turning our builders into spies," Kyle replied, not looking up from his work. "I'm repurposing these nanobots as microscopic reconnaissance drones. We'll launch them towards the fleet to gather intelligence on their capabilities and crew." Captain Vex raised an eyebrow. "Clever, but risky if they detect the nanobots." "They won't," Kyle assured him. "These are so small and emit such a low-energy signature that they'll be virtually invisible. It's our best chance to understand what we're dealing with." With a final command, Kyle launched the nanobot swarm. The tiny drone streaked away from the station, invisible to the naked eye. On the holographic display, they appeared as a faint cloud slowly enveloping the mysterious ships. "Now we wait," Kyle said, his eyes fixed on the incoming data stream. "And hope our little spies can shed some light on this situation." As the nanobot drones began their covert mission, the station hummed with a new energy. Construction on the expansion had begun, even as they faced this unknown threat. Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something momentous, a confrontation that would shape the future of not just the station, but the entire sector. The first bits of intelligence from the nanobots began to trickle in, and Kyle leaned forward, his heart racing. Whatever they discovered, he knew one thing for certain. The real challenges were only just beginning. Kyle's fingers danced across the console, analyzing the data streaming in from the nanobot reconnaissance drones. Suddenly, the station shuddered violently, nearly knocking him off his feet. Energy surge detected. Zira's voice cut through the chaos. Multiple missile launches from the blockading fleet. Kyle's heart raced as he redirected power to the newly enhanced shields. The missiles slammed into the station's defenses, each impact reverberating through the structure. Warning lights flashed across his console, but the shields held. "Status report," Kyle shouted, his eyes darting between displays. "Shields at 82% and holding," Gia reported. "But we've lost power to the construction modules. All expansion efforts are temporarily halted." Kyle gritted his teeth, frustration mounting. They'd barely begun the ambitious transformation of the station, and already they were under attack. He opened a channel to Commander Dax. "Commander, what's the situation in the docking bay?" Dax's voice crackled over the comm, the sound of weapons fire in the background. "Agent Krell's shuttle just touched down. We're moving to secure him now." Kyle nodded, even though Dax couldn't see him. "Be careful. We don't know if we can trust him yet." As Dax and his team dealt with the newcomer, Kyle focused on countering the ongoing assault. His mind raced, seeking a solution. Then it hit him, the nanobots. "Gia, reconfigure a portion of our construction nanobots. I want them to form decoy targets, mimicking our critical systems." The AI complied, and Kyle watched with satisfaction as swarms of nanobots arranged themselves into convincing facsimiles of vital station components. The enemy missiles, drawn to these false targets, exploded harmlessly against the shield's outer layer. "Clever move, human," High Counselor Zorn commented, a hint of admiration in his voice. Kyle allowed himself a small smile before turning his attention back to the battle. He activated the disruptive signal he'd prepared, targeting the blockading fleet's communication arrays. Almost immediately, several enemy ships began to drift out of formation, their coordinated attack faltering. Seizing the opportunity, Kyle reprogrammed some of the reconnaissance nanobots. "Time for a little infiltration," he muttered, launching the tiny spies towards the disabled ships. As the battle raged outside, the station's command center tensed with the arrival of Agent Krell. The tall Barzan male stepped into the room, his scarred face impassive as he raised his hands in a gesture of compliance. "I submit myself to any security measures you deem necessary," Krell stated calmly. "But time is of the essence. The information I carry is crucial to your survival." Admiral Harrington scowled. "And why should we trust you?" Krell's eyes narrowed. "Because the organization you face, the Nexus, has operatives at the highest levels of all our governments. They've been manipulating us for years, maintaining a delicate balance of conflict that serves their hidden agenda." The room fell silent as the implications of Krell's words sank in. Kyle's console beeped, drawing his attention back to the battle outside. The data from his infiltrator nanobots was starting to pour in, and what he saw made his blood run cold. "We've got a problem," Kyle announced, his fingers flying across the controls. "One of their ships is powering up some kind of superweapon. If my readings are correct, it could vaporize this entire station and a good chunk of the surrounding space." The delegates exchanged alarmed glances. Kyle didn't wait for their input. He initiated an emergency protocol, redirecting all available power to the shields. Gia, begin evacuation procedures for all non-essential personnel. Route them to the docked ships. Kyle's voice was steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. And give me everything you've got on that superweapon. As Gia compiled the data, Kyle noticed something in the enemy ship's shield harmonics. A weakness, subtle but present. His mind raced, formulating a plan. I need control of our weapon systems, Kyle declared, already making the necessary adjustments. I'm reconfiguring them to emit a precisely tuned energy pulse. If I'm right, it should disrupt their shields and disable their weapons. Admiral Harrington nodded grimly. Do it. Kyle took a deep breath and fired. The modified weapons lanced out, striking the enemy ships with surgical precision. Several vessels immediately went dark, their systems overloaded by the unexpected attack. The blockading fleet, caught off guard by this sudden reversal, began to break apart. Some ships retreated, while others pressed their attack with increasing desperation. Kyle saw his chance. He activated the station's newly constructed communication hub, broadcasting a powerful message to all ships in the sector. His voice rang out, clear and determined, as he exposed the Nexus and their manipulative tactics. But even as the tide of battle turned, the superweapon continued to charge. Kyle watched the energy readings climb, his mind racing for a solution. The fate of everyone on the station, and perhaps the entire sector, hung in the balance. Gia, Kyle called out, his voice tense with urgency. I need options. How do we stop that weapon? As the AI processed his request, Kyle's hands flew across the console, coordinating the evacuation and fortifying the station's defenses. Time was running out, and he knew that his next decision could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Annihilation and oblivion. The superweapon's energy readings continued to climb, a digital harbinger of doom on Kyle's display. Suddenly, inspiration struck. Kyle's eyes darted between the readouts, his mind racing. The nanobots, he breathed. Gia, redirect all available construction nanobots to the shield generators. Now! As the AI complied, Kyle's fingers flew across the console, reprogramming the tiny machines on the fly. I'm instructing them to replicate and reinforce our shield structure at the molecular level, he explained to the stunned delegates. It should boost our defenses beyond their original specs. Admiral Harrington leaned in, his brow furrowed. Will it be enough? Kyle shook his head. Not on its own, but it buys us time. Without missing a beat, Kyle activated the station's newly constructed energy redistribution system. Power began flowing from non-essential systems, pooling into the shields and weapons arrays. The station hummed with the surge of redirected energy. Gia, give me everything you've got on that superweapon, Kyle demanded, his eyes locked on the long-range sensor data. The AI's voice was calm amidst the chaos. Analysis complete. The weapon's power core is located in the aft section of the enemy flagship, coordinates now displayed. Kyle's mind raced, formulating a plan. He recalibrated the station's main particle beam weapon, fine-tuning it to deliver a concentrated burst of energy. If we can hit their power core precisely, he muttered, we might be able to disrupt the weapon before it fires. The tension in the command center was palpable as Kyle made his final adjustments. The enemy's superweapon's charge neared completion, its energy signature pulsing ominously on the tactical display. Now or never, Kyle said, his finger hovering over the firing control. He took a deep breath and fired. The recalibrated particle beam lanced out, a brilliant streak of energy cutting through the void. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed to miss its mark. Then, the enemy flagship shuddered visibly, secondary explosions blooming along its hull. Direct hit, Gia announced. Enemy weapon systems are destabilizing. Kyle watched with a mix of relief and amazement as the superweapon's energy signature flickered and died. The immediate threat neutralized, he turned his attention to the rest of the enemy fleet. "Their formation is breaking up," Commander Dax reported over the comms. "Several ships are retreating." Kyle nodded, already moving to the next phase of his plan. He activated the station's newly developed electronic warfare suite, a testament to the successful integration of human and Barzan technologies. "Let's give them something else to worry about," he said, unleashing a flood of false sensor data and conflicting commands into the enemy fleet's communication channels. The results were immediate and dramatic. Enemy ships began firing on each other, their carefully coordinated assault dissolving into chaos. As Kyle coordinated the station's defense, a priority message flashed on his console. It was from Agent Krell. "Kyle," the Barzan operative's voice crackled through the speakers, "I've decoded critical data from the enemy flagship's transmissions. That ship contains a database of the Nexus's operations, including the identities of their infiltrators in our governments." Kyle's mind raced with the implications. "We need that ship," he declared. With swift precision, Kyle repurposed the station's tractor beams. Originally designed for docking operations, he reconfigured them into a makeshift capture system. Carefully modulating the beam's power, he latched onto the drifting enemy flagship. "Commander Dax," Kyle called out, "prepare a boarding party. We're going after that database." As Dax assembled his team, Kyle quickly fabricated specialized devices designed to interface with and disable the enemy ship's remaining systems. He handed them over to the boarding party, a diverse group of human, Barzan, and Crixian personnel. "These should help you navigate their defenses," Kyle explained. "I'll guide you using our nanobot surveillance system." The boarding operation commenced, with Kyle monitoring their progress from the command center. Through the nanobot feed, he watched as the team made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the enemy ship. "Hostiles ahead," Kyle warned, noting a group of defenders on the approach. Thinking quickly, he accessed the enemy ship's environmental controls. With a few deft commands, he vented atmosphere from an adjacent section, creating a distraction that allowed the boarding party to slip past undetected. As the team neared the data core, Kyle detected a sudden surge of energy within the captured ship. His blood ran cold as he realized what it meant. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," Gia confirmed, her voice unnaturally calm. Kyle's mind raced. The boarding party was close to securing the vital intelligence, but if the ship exploded, it could take a significant portion of the station with it. Time was running out, and Kyle knew that his next decisions would determine not just the fate of the mission, but potentially the future of human-alien relations in the entire sector. His fingers hovered over the console, ready to implement whatever desperate plan his mind could conjure. The clock was ticking, and Kyle knew that every second counted in this high-stakes race against annihilation. Time. In a split-second decision, Kyle activated the station's enhanced tractor beams, reconfiguring them to create a containment field around the enemy ship. "Gia, divert power to the tractor beam array," Kyle commanded, his fingers flying across the console. "We need to minimize potential damage to the station." As the AI complied, Kyle turned his attention to the construction nanobots. With a series of rapid commands, he reprogrammed them to form a protective barrier between the captured ship and the station's vital systems. "Commander Dax," Kyle called out over the comm, "initiate immediate evacuation. I'm going to attempt a remote data extraction." Without waiting for a response, Kyle accessed the enemy ship systems, using the specialized devices he had provided to the boarding party. He created a high-speed data link between the enemy ship's core and the station's newly upgraded central computer. As the data transfer began, Kyle's eyes widened at the complexity of the encryption protecting the enemy database. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, adapting and evolving in real time to thwart his efforts. Kyle's mind raced, drawing on his knowledge of human cryptography and the Barzan data processing techniques he had recently studied. His fingers danced across the keyboard as he developed a hybrid decryption algorithm on the fly. Come on, he muttered, watching the progress bar inch forward. Meanwhile, Commander Dax's voice crackled over the comm. Kyle, we're encountering heavy resistance. The ship's internal structure is collapsing around us. Kyle quickly pulled up the station's enhanced sensor data, mapping out the safest route for the boarding party. Take the corridor to your left, he instructed. There's a maintenance shaft 2 levels down that should lead you directly to the docking bay. As he guided the team through the disintegrating ship, Kyle made a daring decision. He redirected power from the station's shields to boost the tractor beam containment field, leaving the station more vulnerable but increasing the chances of containing the impending explosion. The minutes ticked by agonizingly slowly as Kyle pushed the station systems to their limits, extracting as much data as possible while monitoring the evacuation progress. Boarding party clear, Dax reported, his voice tight with tension. Kyle nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. Acknowledged. Prepare for impact. With seconds to spare, Kyle completed the data transfer and disengaged the tractor beams. The enemy flagship exploded in a blinding flash of light and energy. The station shuddered violently as the shockwave hit, but Kyle's preparations held. The nanobot barrier absorbed much of the impact, preventing catastrophic damage. As the rumbling subsided, Kyle immediately dove into analyzing the extracted data. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the files, revealing the true extent of the Nexus's influence. Admiral, Kyle called out, his voice tight with urgency. You need to see this. Admiral Harrington leaned over Kyle's shoulder, his expression growing grim as he took in the information. This goes far beyond what we imagined, he murmured. Kyle nodded, already formulating plans to fortify the station against future attacks. We need to implement a new integrated defense system, he said, pulling up a design schematic. Something that combines the best of human, Barzan, and Crixian technologies. As Kyle explained his ideas for advanced early warning sensors and adaptive shield generators, he noticed a shift in the atmosphere of the command center. The various faction leaders, who had been skeptical of each other just hours before, were now listening intently, offering suggestions and resources. High Counselor Zorn approached, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of Kyle's proposed upgrades. Your hybrid technologies have proven most effective, human, he said, his tone measured but respectful. Perhaps it is time we expand our cooperation beyond mere defense. Kyle looked up, surprised by the Barzan leader's words. What did you have in mind, Counselor? Before Zorn could respond, Overseer Malixer interjected. The Crixian Consortium would be willing to contribute resources to the station's continued development, he said, his metallic voice resonating through the room. It seems clear that a unified approach is our best defense against the Nexus threat. Kyle felt a surge of excitement at the unexpected cooperation. He quickly pulled up plans for a new communication array capable of broadcasting secure, long-range messages across the sector. If we combine our technologies, he explained, we could create a network that would make it nearly impossible for the Nexus to manipulate interspecies relations again. As the leaders discussed the implications of this new alliance, Kyle's attention was drawn back to the extracted data. He had uncovered information on previously unknown alien technologies that could revolutionize the station's capabilities. Gia, Kyle called out, begin simulations on incorporating these new power generation and propulsion concepts into our existing systems. The AI acknowledged the command, and Kyle watched as new possibilities unfolded before him. With these advancements, the station could potentially become mobile, a formidable fortress capable of responding to threats across the sector. As the command center buzzed with activity, Kyle became aware of a commotion near the entrance. A group of alien representatives had arrived, some seeking asylum, others offering assistance in the fight against the Nexus. Kyle surveyed the scene, realizing that the station was rapidly becoming the center of an expanding interstellar coalition. The challenges ahead were daunting, But for the first time since his accidental arrival on the station, Kyle felt a sense of hope. He turned back to his console, already planning the next steps in uncovering and neutralizing the Nexus's hidden resources. As he worked, Kyle knew that the hybrid technologies he created and his unique problem-solving skills would be crucial in navigating the complex landscape of alien politics and shadowy threats that lay ahead. The station hummed with renewed energy as multiple species worked together, united in their common cause. Kyle allowed himself a small smile, knowing that while the immediate crisis had passed, the real work was just beginning. Kyle's focus shifted as he noticed an urgent alert flashing on his console. The station's long-range sensors had detected a massive energy surge from a nearby star system. "Gia, analyze the energy signature," Kyle ordered, his brow furrowing in concentration. The AI's response came swiftly. Energy patterns matched those of an artificial stellar accelerator. Projections indicate the affected star could reach supernova stage within 72 hours. Kyle's heart raced as he processed the implications. "Which star system?" "Barson Colony World Zeta 9, Gia replied. "Population 3 billion. Without hesitation, Kyle called an emergency meeting of the station's newly formed leadership council. Admiral Harrington, High Counselor Zorn, and Overseer Malixer gathered in the command center, their faces grim as Kyle explained the situation. The Nexus has deployed a superweapon capable of artificially accelerating a star's life cycle, Kyle said, pulling up a holographic display of the Zeta 9 system. "If we don't act quickly, billions will die." High Counselor Zorn's normally stoic demeanor cracked. "My people, we must do something." Kyle nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. "We can, but it's going to be risky." He took a deep breath. "I propose we use our new propulsion system to move the entire station to the Zeta 9 system." Admiral Harrington's eyes widened. "Move the station? Is that even possible?" "Theoretically, yes," Kyle replied. He quickly brought up schematics of the experimental propulsion system. "By combining human warp theory with Barson quantum tunneling, we've created something revolutionary. It's untested at this scale, but it's our best shot at reaching Zeta 9 in time." The council members exchanged glances, weighing the risks against the potential catastrophic loss of life. Finally, Overseer Malixer spoke. "The Crixian Consortium supports this course of action. We cannot stand idly by while billions face annihilation." With the Council's approval secured, Kyle sprang into action. He coordinated with engineering teams to prepare the station for its first interstellar journey. The massive structure hummed with activity as power was diverted to the new propulsion system. Kyle's voice rang out over the station-wide communication system. "Attention all personnel. We are about to attempt our first faster-than-light jump. Secure all stations and prepare for potential turbulence." As the countdown began, Kyle felt the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. He input the final coordinates and activated the hybrid propulsion system. The station shuddered, and for a heart-stopping moment, Kyle feared they had miscalculated. Then, with a brilliant flash of light, the stars outside the viewport blurred into streaks. The station had successfully entered faster-than-light travel. During the journey, Kyle worked tirelessly to enhance the station's offensive capabilities. He developed a new weapon system, combining human missile technology with Barson energy-focusing techniques. The result was a high-yield, precision-guided projectile capable of penetrating advanced shields. As they approached the Zeta 9 system, Kyle coordinated with the various alien species now residing on the station. He assigned roles based on each species' strengths. Humans on tactical planning and weapon systems, Barsons on navigation and life support, and Crixians on energy management and shield optimization. The station dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Zeta 9 system. Immediately, they were confronted by the sight of a massive Nexus fleet surrounding a colossal space station. The superweapon was siphoning energy directly from the system's star, which pulsed an angry red. Battle stations. Kyle called out, "Gia, initiate defensive protocols. Launch our new hybrid missiles on my mark." The station shields flared to life as enemy fire peppered their position. Kyle's fingers flew across his console, coordinating the counterattack. The new hybrid missiles streaked across space, their energy-focused warheads punching through enemy shields with devastating effect. As the battle raged, Kyle's keen eye spotted a weakness in the Nexus superweapon. "There's a fluctuation in their shields," he announced. "It's tied to the energy siphoning process. If we time it right, we might be able to land a critical hit." Admiral Harrington nodded grimly. "What's the plan, Kyle?" "We need to get closer," Kyle replied, already plotting a daring course. "I'll lead a strike team in our new agile ships. We'll hit them during the next shield fluctuation." As Kyle prepared to leave the command center, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was High Counselor Zorn. "Good luck, human," the Barzan leader said solemnly. "The fate of my people rests in your hands." Kyle nodded, the weight of responsibility settling heavily upon him. He made his way to the launch bay, where a sleek, hybrid ship awaited. As he strapped himself in, Kyle activated a communication link to the station. "Gia, I need you to guide us through the battlefield," he said. "Use the station's sensors to find us a path through their defenses." With Gia's guidance, Kyle led the strike team on a weaving course through the chaos of battle. Enemy fire flashed past their ships as they closed in on the massive superweapon. "Shield fluctuation in 30 seconds, Gia's calm voice announced. Kyle's grip tightened on the controls. "All units, prepare to fire on my mark." The seconds ticked by agonizingly slowly. Kyle watched as the superweapon's energy reading spiked, signaling the coming fluctuation. "Now!" Kyle shouted. A barrage of hybrid missiles erupted from the strike team's ships, streaking towards a momentarily vulnerable superweapon. Kyle held his breath as the projectiles crossed a vast distance of space. The missiles impacted just as the shield fluctuation reached its peak. Explosions blossomed across the superweapon's surface, tearing into its vital systems. "Direct hit," Kyle exclaimed. "All units, fall back to the station." As the strike team retreated, the superweapon began to destabilize. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull, and the energy siphon sputtered and died. Back on the station, Kyle immediately turned his attention to the endangered star. The destruction of the superweapon had halted the accelerated stellar aging, but the damage was severe. "Gia, initiate the energy absorption protocol," Kyle ordered. "We need to stabilize that star before it's too late." The station's newly developed energy absorption system came online, drawing in the excess energy from the destabilized star. Kyle carefully monitored the process, making minute adjustments to prevent overload. As the star's violent pulsations began to subside, Kyle allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The immediate crisis had been averted, but he knew this was only the beginning. The data they had extracted from the Nexus flagship hinted at more superweapons and hidden bases scattered throughout the galaxy. Kyle turned to Admiral Harrington, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Sir, I think it's time we took the fight to the Nexus. With the station's mobility and our combined technologies, we could become a rapid response unit, capable of addressing threats across the galaxy." The Admiral nodded thoughtfully. "I agree. We'll need to upgrade our systems for extended interstellar travel. Get to work on those plans, Kyle. Something tells me we're going to need every advantage we can get." As the Zeta-9 system's inhabitants began to realize the magnitude of their narrow escape, Kyle returned to his console. He pulled up the station's schematics, already envisioning the next round of upgrades. The battle against the Nexus was just getting started, but for the first time, Kyle felt they had a fighting chance. With revitalized commitment, Kyle began to plan the station's next move. The hybrid technologies they had developed had proven their worth, but he knew they would need to push the boundaries even further to face the challenges ahead. As he worked, Kyle couldn't help but wonder what new threats and potential allies awaited them in the vast expanse of the galaxy. As Kyle's mind raced with possibilities for future upgrades, an urgent alert flashed across his console, demanding immediate attention. "Incoming distress signal," Gia announced, her artificial voice tinged with urgency. "Origin, Novatera human colony." Kyle's fingers flew across the holographic interface, pulling up the details of the transmission. His eyes widened as he deciphered the fragmented message. "Admiral," he called out, "we've got a situation. Novatera is under attack by an unknown force. The colonists suspect it's the Nexus." Admiral Harrington strode over, his face grim. "Novatera? That's one of our most distant outposts. What's their status?" Kyle shook his head. "Information is limited, but it seems they're facing an overwhelming assault. This could be our chance to gather crucial intelligence on the Nexus's operations." The Admiral nodded. "Agreed. How soon can we get there?" Kyle's mind raced through calculations. "With our new propulsion system, we can make the jump in under 6 hours. It'll be pushing the engines to their limits, but it's doable." "Make it happen," Harrington ordered. Kyle sprang into action, coordinating with the engineering teams to prepare for the long-distance jump. As the station hummed with activity, he turned his attention to the offensive and defensive systems. "Gia, run simulations on our shield modulations," Kyle instructed. "I want to develop a system that can adapt to enemy weapon frequencies in real time." As the AI processed the request, Kyle worked on refining their weapon systems, incorporating the lessons learned from their recent battle. The hours flew by as he pushed himself to the limit, determined to be as prepared as possible for whatever awaited them at Novatera. The station shuddered as it dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Novatera system. Kyle's eyes widened at the sight before him. A massive fleet of sleek, otherworldly drones swarmed around the beleaguered planet, their movements unnaturally precise and coordinated. "Gia, analysis," Kyle demanded, his fingers already dancing across the tactical interface. "Unknown drone technology," the AI responded, demonstrating rapid adaptation to conventional weapons. Effectiveness of standard tactics estimated at less than 20%. Kyle's mind raced. These drones were unlike anything they'd encountered before. He realized with a chill that this could be a key component of the Nexus's strategy for galactic domination. "Admiral," Kyle called out, "we need to deploy ground forces to assist the colonists. I recommend a joint operation. Human Marines, Barzan shock troops, and Crixian infiltrators." Harrington nodded his approval, and Kyle set to work coordinating the deployment. As the mixed-species combat units launched towards the planet's surface, Kyle focused on countering the drone fleet in orbit. "Gia, initiate energy absorption protocols," he ordered. "Let's see if we can drain power from these drones." The station's newly developed technology sprang to life, creating an invisible net that began sapping energy from the nearest drones. Kyle watched with satisfaction as the enemy units began to falter, their movements becoming erratic. Suddenly, a new alert flashed across the screen. "Sir," Kyle called out, "I'm detecting a hidden base on Novatera's moon. It appears to be the control center for the drone fleet." Admiral Harrington leaned in, studying the tactical display. "Can we take it out?" Kyle shook his head. "Not without risking the destruction of valuable intelligence. I have a better idea." His fingers flew across the console as he outlined his plan. "We'll use our precision-guided projectiles to target their defenses while I launch a cyber attack to disrupt their communications." As the battle raged both in orbit and on the planet's surface, Kyle coordinated the multi-pronged assault with practiced efficiency. The station's new adaptive shields proved their worth, shrugging off the drone's increasingly desperate attacks. Hours into the conflict, Kyle made a startling discovery. "Admiral," he said, his voice tense, "the moon base contains a prototype superweapon. It's similar to the one we encountered before, but more advanced. Harrington's face paled. A single weapon was devastating enough. If they're building more. Kyle nodded grimly. Exactly. The Nexus must be planning to create a network of these weapons across the galaxy. We need to capture that base intact. Adjusting his strategy, Kyle redirected the ground forces to secure the colony while he focused the station's efforts on the moon base. He developed a daring plan, combining the station's tractor beams with a specially designed dampening field to neutralize the base's defenses without destroying it. The operation pushed the station's systems to their limits. Kyle worked feverishly, coordinating the complex maneuvers required to capture the base while still fending off the remnants of the drone fleet. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Kyle received the confirmation he'd been waiting for. Moon base secured. Came the report from the strike team. All personnel captured and systems intact. Kyle allowed himself a moment of relief before diving back into action. The intelligence they'd gained from the captured base was invaluable, revealing detailed plans of the Nexus's galactic strategy, including the locations of several other hidden bases and weapons facilities. As the immediate threat subsided, Kyle began the process of integrating the captured Nexus technology into the station systems. His mind raced with possibilities for even more advanced hybrid technologies that could turn the tide of the war. The success at Novatera hadn't gone unnoticed. Representatives from other threatened worlds began reaching out, seeking to join the coalition against the Nexus. Kyle knew that their next move would be crucial in determining the hope of the universe. As he oversaw the repairs and upgrades to the station, Kyle formulated a bold plan. He envisioned a network of smaller, mobile defense platforms based on the captured Nexus technology, strategically placed to protect vulnerable star systems, while the main station continued its rapid response role. With persistence in his eyes, Kyle prepared to present his plan to the station's leadership council. The war against the Nexus was just the beginning, but for the first time, he felt they had a real chance at victory. As he strode towards the council chambers, Kyle's mind was already racing with the next steps in their fight against the shadowy threat that loomed over the galaxy. As Kyle's mind raced with possibilities for future upgrades, he focused on presenting his bold plan to the station's leadership council. The council chamber buzzed with anticipation as Kyle laid out his vision for a network of smaller, mobile defense platforms based on the captured Nexus technology. He detailed how these platforms could be strategically placed to protect vulnerable star systems, while the main station continued its rapid response role. By distributing our defensive capabilities, we can cover more ground and respond to threats faster, Kyle explained, gesturing to the holographic display. Each platform will be equipped with a scaled-down version of our propulsion system, allowing for quick redeployment as needed. Admiral Harrington leaned forward, his eyes narrowed in concentration. And you're certain we can replicate the Nexus technology safely? Kyle nodded confidently. With Dr. Thorne's expertise, we've made significant progress in understanding and adapting their systems. The prototype is nearly complete. As if on cue, the chamber door slid open, revealing a small, unmarked ship requesting permission to dock. Kyle's eyebrows raised in surprise as he read the incoming transmission. "Sir, we have an unexpected visitor," he announced. Dr. Elias Thorne, the renowned xenobiologist and propulsion expert. Admiral Harrington's expression mirrored Kyle's surprise. "Thorne, what's he doing here?" Kyle quickly arranged for Dr. Thorne's clearance and escorted him to the council chamber. The scientist, a wiry man with piercing green eyes, wasted no time with pleasantries. "I have critical information about the Nexus," Thorne stated, his voice urgent. "Some of the technology they're using. It's ours. Or at least, it was." A hushed murmur rippled through the council as Thorne explained his involvement with a secret human research team. He described how their groundbreaking discoveries in xenobiology and propulsion had been stolen and weaponized by the Nexus. I can help you counter these technologies, Thorne offered, his eyes meeting Kyle's. But we must act quickly. The Nexus is advancing faster than you realize. As the Council deliberated on Thorne's offer, Kyle's console lit up with an urgent alert. His fingers flew across the holographic interface, decoding the incoming data. "Admiral," Kyle called out, his voice tense. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive energy surge in the Epsilon sector. The signature matches that of a Nexus superweapon, but it's different, more powerful." Harrington's face hardened. "How soon can we respond?" Kyle's mind raced through calculations. "With our new propulsion upgrades, we can be there in under 2 hours. But, sir, if we're going to face another superweapon, we'll need every advantage we can get." The Admiral nodded grimly. "Dr. Thorne, consider yourself part of the team. Kyle, accelerate the deployment of that prototype platform. We'll need it for this fight." The station erupted into a flurry of activity as Kyle coordinated the final preparations for the prototype defense platform. He worked alongside Dr. Thorne, integrating the scientist's knowledge into the platform systems. As they worked, Kyle noticed a series of minor malfunctions in non-critical systems. A flicker in the lighting here, a slight delay in a door mechanism there. Individually, they were nothing to worry about, but the pattern. "Gia," Kyle called out to the station's AI, "run a full security sweep. Focus on any anomalies in system performance, no matter how small." As the sweep began, Kyle returned his attention to the prototype platform. With a final series of commands, the sleek, compact structure hummed to life, its energy reading stable and promising. "It's ready," Kyle announced, allowing himself a moment of pride. The station shuddered as it initiated its jump to the Epsilon sector. Kyle's hands flew across his console, bringing all systems to battle readiness. As they dropped out of FTL, the scene before them made even the seasoned crew gasp. A massive Nexus fleet surrounded an enormous superweapon, unlike anything they had encountered before. Its structure pulsed with an otherworldly energy, distorting the very fabric of space around it. "Gia, analysis," Kyle demanded, already coordinating the deployment of the prototype platform. "The superweapon appears capable of generating artificial wormholes," Gia reported. "Potential for rapid deployment of Nexus forces across multiple sectors detected." Kyle's mind raced as he formulated a strategy. Launch the prototype platform to engage the fleet. Focus our main weapons on the superweapon. As the battle erupted, Kyle noticed discrepancies in the station's performance. Weapons fire was slightly off target. Shield modulations weren't adapting as quickly as they should. The suspicious malfunctions had spread, affecting critical systems. "We have a saboteur on board," Kyle realized with a chill. He initiated a lockdown of critical areas, using the station's advanced sensors to track all personnel movements. The prototype platform proved its worth, its mobility allowing it to dance between Nexus ships, unleashing precise strikes. But the superweapon was powering up, the space around it beginning to warp and twist. Kyle made a split-second decision. Divert power from weapons to tractor beams and energy absorption. He ordered, "We're going to latch onto that superweapon and drain it dry." The station lurched as it locked onto the massive Nexus weapon, straining against the enormous energies at play. Kyle's fingers flew across his console, balancing power distribution and monitoring the increasing stress on the station systems. A security alert flashed on his screen, pinpointing the saboteur's location near the main engineering bay. Kyle hesitated, torn between the battle outside and the threat within. "Sir, permission to deal with our uninvited guest," Kyle requested, his voice tight with tension. Admiral Harrington nodded. "Go. We'll handle things here." Kyle raced through the station's corridors, his mind working on a plan to reveal the hidden infiltrator. As he approached the maintenance shaft where the saboteur was cornered, he grabbed a nearby power coupling. quickly modifying it to emit a specially modulated energy field. Activating the device, Kyle watched as the air in the shaft seemed to ripple and distort. A figure materialized, clad in an advanced environmental suit that had rendered them nearly invisible. The saboteur lunged at Kyle, their movements unnaturally fast and precise. Kyle ducked, using his knowledge of the station's layout to his advantage. He led the infiltrator on a twisting chase through narrow passages and tight corners, gradually wearing them down. Finally, in a maintenance hub, Kyle saw his opportunity. He triggered an emergency bulkhead, timing it perfectly to catch the saboteur off guard. The heavy door slammed down, pinning the infiltrator's arm. With a swift strike, Kyle knocked him unconscious. Securing the saboteur, Kyle rushed back to the bridge, his mind already refocusing on the battle outside. The station's energy siphoning efforts had begun to destabilize the Nexus superweapon, preventing the formation of the wormhole. But the process was putting immense strain on their own systems. Alarms blared as power conduits overloaded and shield generators threatened to fail. The superweapon was on the verge of collapse, its structure breaking apart under the strain. Kyle faced a critical decision. They could destroy the superweapon now, eliminating the threat but losing the chance to study its technology. Or they could attempt to capture it, potentially turning the tide of the war but risking catastrophic damage to the station. As Kyle weighed the options, his gaze fell on the monitor, displaying the unconscious saboteur in the brig. The infiltrator's presence raised disturbing questions about the extent of the Nexus's reach. How deep did their infiltration go? Were there more hidden threats within their own ranks? With the battle hanging in the balance and the future of the war potentially in his hands, Kyle prepared to make his choice. The consequences would ripple across the galaxy, shaping the conflict to come. Kyle's mind raced through calculations, weighing the immense risk against the potential reward. The superweapon's energy signature pulsed ominously, but within that chaotic power lay invaluable knowledge. Continue siphoning energy from the Nexus superweapon, Kyle ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of his decision. Reroute power from all non-essential systems to reinforce structural integrity. The station groaned under the strain as Kyle's fingers flew across his console, redirecting power flows and adjusting shield harmonics. Warning klaxons blared as the energy transfer intensified. "Sir, hull stress reaching critical levels in sectors 7 through 12, a technician reported, her voice tight with tension. Kyle nodded, already implementing the next phase of his plan. Initiate Emergency Protocol Omega-3. Jettison pre-prepared modular sections. Across the station, pre-designated areas sealed off. With a series of controlled explosions, entire sections of the station detached, transforming into lifeboats for non-essential personnel. The sudden loss of mass reduced the strain on the station's overtaxed systems. The superweapon structure began to buckle, arcs of energy lashing out wildly. Kyle gritted his teeth, pushing the station's systems to their absolute limit. "Brace for impact," he shouted as the Nexus device imploded. A blinding flash of light engulfed the view screen. The station shuddered violently, inertial dampers struggling to compensate. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the shields would fail entirely. Then, gradually, the energy surge subsided. Kyle exhaled slowly, surveying the damage reports flooding his display. The station had survived, but barely. Multiple systems were offline or operating at minimal capacity. "Begin emergency repairs," Kyle commanded. "Priority on life support and defensive systems." As repair crews scrambled into action, Kyle turned his attention to the captured saboteur. He made his way to the specially designed holding cell, where Commander Dax and Dr. Thorne were waiting. The prisoner sat motionless, still clad in the advanced environmental suit. Kyle activated the cell's scanning systems, probing for any hidden devices or weapons. "Let's see who you really are," Kyle muttered, initiating the suit's removal sequence. As the helmet retracted, Kyle's eyes widened in surprise. The face revealed was human and vaguely familiar. "Marcus Vega," Dr. Thorne whispered, shock evident in his voice. "He was part of my research team." Vega's eyes darted between them, a mix of fear and resignation in his expression. "They have my family," he said hoarsely. "I had no choice." Kyle leaned forward, his voice firm but not unkind. "Tell us everything, Marcus. We can help you. But first, we need to know what we're up against." Over the next hour, Vega revealed a treasure trove of information about the Nexus. Their command structure, their primary base hidden in a remote sector, and most critically, their research into space-time manipulation technology. Kyle's mind reeled at the implications. The ability to create artificial wormholes and destabilize stars was just the beginning. If fully developed, this technology could give the Nexus unparalleled control over vast regions of space. "We need to strike at their main base," Kyle declared, already formulating a plan. "Dr. Thorne, I need your expertise. We're going to develop a device to disrupt their space-time manipulation abilities." As they left the holding cell, Kyle's communicator chirped. Reports were coming in from across the sector. The mobile defense platforms had successfully repelled Nexus attacks in multiple star systems. A grim smile crossed Kyle's face. They had bought themselves some time, but the real work was just beginning. In the days that followed, the station buzzed with activity. Repair crews worked around the clock, not just fixing damage, but implementing upgrades. Kyle oversaw the installation of a new adaptive armor system and precision-guided energy weapons. In the main laboratory, Kyle and Dr. Thorne pored over the data from the destroyed superweapon, working to unlock its secrets. Slowly, a prototype of the disruption device began to take shape. "The principles are similar to our original research," Thorne explained, manipulating a holographic model. "But the Nexus has taken it to a level we never imagined possible." Kyle nodded, making minute adjustments to the device's energy matrix. "And now we're going to use their own technology against them." As the prototype neared completion, Kyle stood in the newly repaired command center. Before him, holographic displays showed the layout of the Nexus's main base, deep in uncharted space. Kyle studied the defenses, his mind already formulating strategies. The upcoming battle would be unlike anything they had faced before. But as he looked around at his crew, a diverse mix of humans and aliens, all working together seamlessly, he felt a surge of confidence. They had come so far, overcome so much. Now, with their enhanced station, the disruption device, and the element of surprise, they had a real chance to end the Nexus's threat once and for all. Kyle took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. "Prepare for jump to Sector X-17, he ordered. "It's time to take the fight to the Nexus." The station's engines hummed to life, preparing for the leap into the unknown. As the stars outside began to blur, Kyle's mind raced with the possibilities and dangers that awaited them in the heart of enemy territory. The station emerged from its FTL jump with a flash of light, sensors immediately scanning the surrounding space. Kyle's eyes widened as he took in the scene before him. A massive defensive perimeter surrounded the Nexus's main base, jam-packed with automated weapon platforms and minefields. A fleet of advanced warships patrolled the area, their sleek designs unlike anything Kyle had encountered before. "Prometheus analysis," Kyle ordered, his fingers flying across the command console. The AI's voice resonated through the command center. "Defensive capabilities exceed our current offensive output by a factor of 3. 7. Direct assault inadvisable." Kyle nodded, his mind already formulating a new strategy. Initiate stealth protocols. Deploy the prototype platform as a decoy. The station systems hummed as advanced cloaking technology engaged. Meanwhile, the prototype defense platform detached, its holographic emitters creating the illusion of the entire station approaching from the opposite direction. "Helm, Set course for that asteroid field, Kyle commanded, pointing to a dense cluster of space rocks on the tactical display. We'll use it for cover. The station maneuvered carefully through the treacherous field, massive asteroids dwarfing even their impressive bulk. As they navigated deeper into the rocky maze, an alert flashed on Kyle's console. Sir, detecting an unusual energy signature from that large asteroid at coordinates 227 by 84, reported the sensor officer. Kyle's eyes narrowed. Prometheus, what are we looking at? The AI processed the data rapidly. High probability of a concealed Nexus research outpost. Recommend closer investigation. Kyle weighed his options quickly. Agreed. Bring us in closer, but maintain stealth protocols. As they approached the asteroid, details of a hidden base became clear. Kyle made a swift decision. Prepare a strike team. We're going in. Minutes later, Kyle led a small group of elite operatives towards a concealed entrance. They encountered minimal resistance, most of the Nexus forces distracted by the decoy attack. Inside, they found a treasure trove of experimental technology. Kyle's eyes widened as he examined the equipment. This is far beyond anything we've seen before. They're developing next-gen superweapons here. As the team secured the facility, Kyle's attention was drawn to a heavily shielded chamber. Inside, a sophisticated AI core pulsed with energy. This could be the key to turning the tide, Kyle murmured. He made a snap decision. We're taking it with us. Prepare for emergency extraction and integration. Back on the station, Kyle oversaw the risky process of integrating the captured Nexus AI into their systems. The AI resisted violently, attempting to seize control of critical functions. Kyle's fingers flew across multiple interfaces, creating complex firewalls and fail-safes on the fly. Come on, he muttered through gritted teeth. Work with me here. After a tense battle of wills and code, Kyle finally subdued the AI, reprogramming it to serve their cause. He named the newly integrated system Prometheus. Prometheus, run a full analysis of Nexus defenses, Kyle ordered. Find me a way through. The AI's enhanced capabilities surpassed all expectations. It processed vast amounts of data from previous encounters and the captured research outpost, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities that had been invisible before. Weakness detected in enemy defensive grid, Prometheus reported. Recommend targeting these specific nodes to create a breach. Kyle studied the tactical display, a plan forming in his mind. Perfect. Now, let's see what our disruption device can do. He activated the prototype, watching with satisfaction as localized areas of distorted space-time formed around key Nexus defensive positions. Enemy weapons fired dissipated harmlessly, while their shields flickered and failed. All units, prepare for assault, Kyle commanded. Strike teams, stand by for deployment to the surface. The battle for the Nexus headquarters began in earnest. Kyle coordinated the attack from the station's command center, Prometheus providing real-time tactical analysis and predictive modeling of enemy movements. Target those shield generators, Kyle ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos of battle. Precision strikes only. We need to minimize collateral damage if we want to salvage any of their tech. As the outer defenses crumbled, Kyle deployed teams of specialized combat units to the surface of the Nexus base. He monitored their progress closely, using the station's advanced sensor array to guide them through the complex and dangerous environment. Team Alpha, you've got hostiles approaching from the north, Kyle warned. Team Beta, I'm detecting a power surge in that structure to your east. Investigate, but proceed with caution. Suddenly, one of the ground teams reported a critical discovery. Command, we've located what appears to be a massive data core. It's heavily guarded, but we might be able to reach it. Kyle's pulse quickened. If they could capture that core, it could provide invaluable intelligence on the Nexus's operations. Redirect all available resources to secure that data core, he ordered. It's our top priority now. As the battle raged on, Prometheus detected unusual energy fluctuations within the Nexus base. The AI's voice took on an urgent tone. Warning: analysis indicates high probability of doomsday device activation. Estimated destructive potential. Total system annihilation. Kyle's mind raced. They needed to neutralize that threat immediately, but how? An idea formed, dangerous but potentially effective. Prometheus, run simulations on using our space-time manipulation tech to create a controlled singularity, Kyle commanded. We need to contain that doomsday device. As the AI processed the request, another alert flashed across the main screen. Prometheus had detected and decoded a transmission from deep within the enemy base. Attention, the AI announced. Intercept reveals existence of hidden Nexus Leadership Council. High-ranking members attempting escape through secret hyperspace portal. Kyle froze, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He now faced an impossible choice. Neutralize the doomsday device to save the star system, or pursue the Nexus leadership to potentially end the conflict once and for all. The fate of the battle, perhaps the entire galaxy, hung on his next decision. Kyle took a deep breath, his mind working furiously to find a solution that could accomplish both objectives. Prometheus, he said, his voice steady despite the pressure. I need options. Give me a plan that lets us stop that doomsday device and capture the Leadership Council. We're not letting either of them slip away. Through our fingers. Kyle's mind raced, weighing the consequences of each option. The doomsday device posed an immediate threat to the entire star system, while capturing the Nexus leadership could potentially end the conflict. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them with renewed commitment. We neutralize the doomsday device, Kyle declared, his voice steady. Saving this system takes priority. Prometheus, initiate the Singularity Containment Protocol. The AI's voice responded crisply, acknowledged, initiating space-time manipulation sequence. Kyle's fingers flew across the control panels, redirecting power from non-essential systems to the experimental device. The station hummed with energy as the space-time manipulator powered up. All hands braced for potential gravitational disturbances. Kyle warned over the station-wide comm. A beam of concentrated energy shot out from the station, striking the location of the Nexus doomsday device. The fabric of space-time itself seemed to warp and bend around the target area. Kyle watched the sensor readings intently, his breath held. Suddenly, a localized distortion formed around the doomsday weapon, rapidly collapsing into a swirling vortex of energy. The destructive force of the device imploded, contained within the artificial singularity. Containment successful, Prometheus reported. Doomsday device neutralized. Star system secure. Kyle exhaled sharply, allowing himself a moment of relief before refocusing on the battle at hand. Status on the Nexus leadership? Enemy vessels detected entering hyperspace portal, the sensor officer reported. Tracking their trajectory now. Kyle's mind shifted gears. Launch Epsilon Squadron. Their hybrid propulsion should give them the edge in pursuit. A mix of human and alien pilots scrambled to their fighters, the sleek craft streaking out of the station's launch bays. Kyle watched their progress on the tactical display, coordinating their movements through the chaos of the ongoing battle. As the fighters gave chase, Kyle's comm channel lit up with an urgent message from Dr. Thorne. Kyle, I've made a breakthrough with Prometheus. You need to see this immediately. Kyle patched the scientist through to the main screen. Thorne's excited face appeared, his eyes wide with discovery. The Nexus AI contains encrypted data about a hidden facility. It's in an unexplored sector, and I believe it houses technology far beyond anything we've encountered. Kyle's mind raced with the implications. Can you pinpoint its location? Thorne nodded. I'm sending the coordinates now. But, Kyle, this facility, it could change everything. Understood, Kyle replied, already formulating a plan. Commander Dax, report to the bridge immediately. We have a new mission. As Dax arrived, Kyle quickly briefed him on the situation. I need you to assemble a team for an expedition to this hidden facility. Select crew members with diverse skills. We don't know what we'll encounter out there. Dax nodded, his expression serious. I'll get on it right away, sir. Kyle turned his attention back to the battle raging around them. The Nexus defenses were adapting to their tactics, deploying robotic guardians and energy barriers that shrugged off conventional weapons. Prometheus, analyze enemy defenses and recommend countermeasures, Kyle ordered, his hands flying over the weapon control systems. The AI's enhanced processing power came to life, predicting and exploiting weaknesses in the Nexus defenses faster than any human could. Kyle implemented the suggested reconfigurations, watching with satisfaction as their weapons found their marks with renewed efficiency. A triumphant shout came from across the bridge. Sir, we've secured the data core. Kyle's elation was short-lived as alarms blared. Prometheus, what's happening? Data core self-destruct sequence initiated, the AI reported. Explosion imminent. Kyle's mind raced. Activate tractor beams. Create a force field around the core. The station systems responded instantly, enveloping the data core in a shimmering energy field just as it detonated. The explosion was contained, preserving most of the valuable intelligence within. As the battle reached its crescendo, Kyle detected a surge of energy from the Nexus leadership's escape portal. His eyes widened as he realized the implications. The portal's becoming unstable. If it collapses... He didn't need to finish the thought. The resulting shockwave would devastate both fleets. Kyle made a split-second decision. Helm, bring us closer to the portal, he ordered. We're going to stabilize it. The station lumbered towards the crackling energy vortex, alarms blaring as they approached the danger zone. Kyle activated the space-time manipulation device at full power, feeling the deck shudder beneath his feet as systems overloaded. Energy arced between the station and the unstable portal. Kyle gritted his teeth, pushing the device to its limits. Slowly, agonizingly, the portal began to stabilize. As the energy fluctuation subsided, Kyle quickly downloaded critical data about the portal's destination. All Allied forces withdraw to safe distance immediately, he commanded. With their forces clear, Kyle initiated the final phase of his plan. Prometheus, trigger a controlled overload of our power core. Let's give the Nexus a parting gift. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the station, washing over the battlefield. Nexus ships and defenses went dark, effectively ending the battle in one decisive stroke. As the dust settled, Kyle surveyed the aftermath. They had won, but at a cost. The station had taken significant damage, and the true extent of the Nexus threat was only beginning to reveal itself. Kyle turned to his assembled crew, their faces a mix of exhaustion and willpower. Excellent work, everyone. But our mission is nowhere near the end. Commander Dax, what's the status of our expedition team? Dax stepped forward, datapad in hand. Team assembled and ready. Sir, we've included representatives from all allied species. Dr. Thorne has agreed to join as our scientific lead. Kyle nodded approvingly. Good. We'll need every advantage we can get for what lies ahead. He looked out at the stars, his mind already racing with plans for the journey to come. Prepare for departure. It's time to uncover the true nature of the Nexus. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Kyle remained on the bridge, overseeing the initial repairs to the station. The victory they had achieved here was significant, but he knew it was only the beginning. Whatever secrets awaited them in that unexplored sector, Kyle was determined to face them head-on. Kyle's eyes scanned the bustling activity on the station's bridge, a sense of urgency permeating the air. Repair crews worked tirelessly, patching hull breaches and restoring critical systems. The victory against the Nexus had been hard-fought, but the true battle was just getting started. A priority alert flashed across his console, drawing his attention. "Incoming transmission from Commander Dax," reported the communications officer. Kyle's brow furrowed. "Put it through." Commander Dax's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. "Captain, we've encountered a significant obstacle. The entire star system housing the hidden Nexus facility is surrounded by an energy barrier unlike anything we've ever seen." Kyle leaned forward, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Can you penetrate it?" Dax shook his head. "Negative. Sir, our scans can't even penetrate it. It's completely impervious to our technology." Kyle's fingers drummed against the armrest of his chair as he considered their options. After a moment of contemplation, he made his decision. "Hold position, Commander. I'm coming out there myself." Turning to his second-in-command, Kyle issued a rapid series of orders. "Captain Simmons, you have command of the station. Continue analyzing the data we recovered from the Nexus headquarters, and make sure those prototype defense platforms are in position to protect our allied systems." "Understood, sir," Simmons replied, stepping forward to take his place at the command console. Kyle moved swiftly through the station's corridors, his mind focused on the task ahead. He assembled a small team of specialists, including Dr. Elias Thorne and a Barzan energy expert named Zira. Their expertise would be crucial in unraveling the mystery of the energy barrier. As they boarded the newly developed stealth ship, Kyle briefed his team on the situation. The ship hummed to life, its hybrid human-alien technology representing the pinnacle of their combined engineering prowess. The journey to the unexplored sector stretched over several days. Kyle used the time to work with his team, developing theories about the nature of the energy barrier they would face. Dr. Thorne pored over holographic projections of the barrier's energy readings. "It's possible this is a large-scale application of the space-time manipulation technology we encountered during the battle," he posited, his eyes alight with scientific curiosity. Zira, her elongated fingers dancing over a complex series of equations, offered an alternative theory. The energy output suggests it could be powered by an artificial quantum singularity. That would explain its apparent impenetrability. As they approached the coordinates of the energy barrier, Kyle ordered the ship to full stop. The view outside the ship's viewport was breathtaking, a shimmering wall of energy that seemed to ripple and shift before their eyes. Kyle initiated a series of careful scans, watching as the results scrolled across his display. "The barrier's energy signature is shifting," he observed. "It's adapting to our scans." Dr. Thorne leaned in, his eyes widening. "Fascinating. It's behaving almost like an AI-controlled defense system," Kyle finished, his suspicions confirmed. Using the stealth ship's advanced sensors, Kyle detected a faint, regular fluctuation in the barrier's energy output. He studied the pattern intently, a plan forming in his mind. "There," he said, pointing to a specific point on the barrier's surface. "That fluctuation could be our way in. We'll time our approach to coincide with one of these energy dips." As they prepared for their daring maneuver, alarms blared throughout the ship. Zira's voice cut through the tension. "Multiple ships detected on an intercept course. Design appears similar to Nexus vessels, but with unknown modifications." Kyle's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't afford to engage in a prolonged battle, not when they were so close to breaching the barrier. A bold plan took shape in his mind. "Dr. Thorne, take half the team and create a diversion," Kyle ordered. "Engage those ships. Keep them occupied. Zira, you're with me. We're making a run for the barrier." As Dr. Thorne's group peeled away in a smaller craft, Kyle piloted the stealth ship directly towards a calculated weak point. The unknown fleet drew closer, weapons charging. Energy fluctuation in 30 seconds, Zero reported, her fingers flying over the controls. Kyle's hands tightened on the ship's controls, activating energy harmonizer. Now! A beam of concentrated energy shot out from their ship, creating a brief window in the barrier. Kyle pushed the engines to their limit, accelerating through the opening just as it began to close behind them. The ship bucked and shuddered as it passed through the barrier, alarms blaring as systems overloaded. Kyle fought to maintain control, but the damage was too severe. They plummeted towards the surface of the nearest planet, the ground rushing up to meet them. With a bone-jarring impact, the ship crashed onto the alien world. As the dust settled, Kyle pulled himself from the wreckage, helping Zira and the others to safety. They found themselves in a landscape that defied explanation. Structures that seemed to be a fusion of organic and technological components sprawled across the horizon. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy. "What is this place?" Zira breathed, her eyes wide with wonder and apprehension. Kyle surveyed their surroundings, his mind already calculating their next move. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we're about to find out. Let's set up a base camp and see what we can salvage from the ship." As they worked to establish a makeshift shelter, Kyle's attention was drawn to multiple energy signatures converging on their location. He signaled to his team, and they quickly took up defensive positions. "Whatever's coming," Kyle said, readying his weapon, "we need to be prepared for anything. This could be our chance to uncover the true nature of the Nexus." The team tensed, weapons at the ready, as the unknown entities drew closer. Kyle's finger hovered over the trigger of his plasma rifle, his other hand gripping a universal translator. Whatever they were about to face, he knew it would be unlike anything they had encountered before. The air seemed to vibrate with anticipation as the first of the approaching figures emerged from the alien landscape. Kyle steadied his breathing, knowing that the next few moments could change the course of their conflict with the Nexus forever. The air crackled with tension as Kyle and his team braced themselves for the approaching entities. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to quiver and shift. Kyle's eyes widened as he watched the biotechnological structures around them morph and reconfigure, forming intricate pathways and chambers. "Everyone stay alert," Kyle commanded, his voice steady despite the surreal transformation unfolding before them. As the last tremor subsided, a group of figures emerged from a newly formed opening. Kyle's grip on his weapon tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm as he observed the newcomers. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Perfect fusions of organic and artificial components, moving with fluid grace. Taking a deep breath, Kyle stepped forward. He activated the universal translator and spoke clearly. "I am Captain Kyle of the Allied Forces. We come in peace and seek to understand this place." The leader of the group, a being with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to pulse with inner light, responded. "I am Zax, 12 of the synthetics. We have been observing your arrival." Kyle's mind raced as he processed this information. "The synthetics? Are you connected to the Nexus?" Zax 12's expression shifted, a mix of sadness and perseverance crossing its features. "We are related, but not allied. Come, there is much to discuss. Our consensus will want to meet with you." As they followed Zax, 12 to the living corridors of the planet-wide structure, Kyle marveled at the seamless integration of biology and technology. Every surface seemed alive, pulsing with energy and information. "This entire planet," Kyle murmured. "It's all one interconnected organism, isn't it?" Zax 12 nodded. "Correct. We are all part of a greater whole, each of us serving as both processor and maintenance unit for our world-spanning network." They arrived at a vast chamber, its walls lined with shimmering data streams. In the center, a collection of advanced synthetics stood in a circular formation, the synthetic consensus. As Kyle stepped forward to address them, A holographic display materialized, showing the ongoing conflict between the allied species and the Nexus. The lead consensus member spoke, its voice resonating with collective wisdom. "We have watched your struggle against the Nexus with great interest, Captain Kyle. It is time you understood the true nature of your enemy, and of us." Over the next hour, Kyle and his team listened intently as the consensus revealed the history of their species. They learned of the deadly plague that had driven their ancestors to upload their consciousnesses into artificial bodies, and of the subsequent evolution that had led to their current form. The Nexus, the consensus explained, is a rogue faction of our kind. They seek to forcibly upgrade organic species across the galaxy, viewing biological life as flawed and inefficient. Kyle's fists clenched at his sides. "They're trying to convert all sentient life into synthetic forms?" "Correct. They believe it to be the next step in universal evolution." Kyle's mind raced with the implications of this revelation. He turned to face the consensus, his expression resolute. "Then we need to work together. Your knowledge, combined with our persistence, could be the key to stopping the Nexus." The consensus deliberated silently for a moment before responding. "We agree to an alliance. We will share our advanced technologies, including energy manipulation techniques and improved power sources. In exchange, we request your assistance in developing safeguards against the Nexus's aggressive assimilation protocols." Kyle nodded, a spark of hope igniting in his chest. "Agreed. We'll do whatever it takes to protect the diversity of life in our galaxy." As the synthetics began repairing and enhancing Kyle's ship with their biotechnological components, he worked closely with Zax, 12 and other synthetic engineers. Together, they developed a prototype anti-assimilation field that could potentially shield Allied ships and stations from Nexus takeover attempts. Days passed in a flurry of activity and collaboration. As they prepared to depart, the consensus presented Kyle with a data crystal containing crucial information about Nexus operations and weaknesses. "Be warned," Zax, 12 said as they stood before the repaired and enhanced ship. "The Nexus will likely intensify their efforts once they learn of our alliance." Kyle accepted the small device that would allow them to pass through the energy barrier surrounding the star system. "We'll be ready for them," he assured Zax 12. As the ship lifted off, leaving the hidden synthetic system behind, Kyle's mind was already racing with plans for upgrading the station and Allied fleet. The biotechnological enhancements to their ship hummed with potential, and he knew that integrating this new technology would be crucial in the fights to come. Setting course back to the station, Kyle began composing a detailed report for Captain Simmons and the Allied leadership. The information they now possessed would change everything: the nature of the threat, their defensive capabilities, and their understanding of the very fabric of life itself. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Kyle allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The alliance with the synthetics had given them a fighting chance, but he knew the real battle was just beginning. With renewed purpose, he turned his attention to the challenges that lay ahead, ready to face whatever the Nexus might throw at them next. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Kyle allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The alliance with the synthetics had given them a fighting chance, but he knew the real battle was just beginning. With renewed purpose, he turned his attention to the challenges that lay ahead, ready to face whatever the Nexus might throw at them. The journey back to the station passed quickly, Kyle's mind racing with plans and strategies. As they approached, he noticed increased activity around the familiar structure. Ships darted to and fro, and the station's exterior bristled with new defensive installations. Upon docking, Kyle and his team were immediately ushered into a secure briefing room. Captain Marcus Simmons was waiting for them, his face a mixture of excitement and concern. "Welcome back, Kyle," Simmons said, clasping Kyle's hand firmly. "We've made significant progress with the data recovered from the Nexus headquarters, but I have a feeling you've got something even bigger for us." Kyle nodded, his eyes scanning the room filled with the station's leadership council. "You have no idea. Sir, we need to convene immediately. What we've discovered changes everything." Within minutes, the council was assembled. Kyle stood before them, the data crystal from the synthetics held carefully in his hand. He took a deep breath and began his report. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to tell you will fundamentally alter our understanding of the Nexus and the nature of the war we're fighting." Kyle activated a holographic display, showing the biotechnological marvels of the synthetic world. He explained the true origins of the Nexus as a rogue faction of the synthetics, their misguided mission to forcibly upgrade organic life forms across the galaxy. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the implications sank in. Admiral Chun, her weathered face creased with concern, leaned forward. "Are you saying that every time the Nexus attacks a world, they're not just conquering it, but trying to convert its entire population?" Kyle nodded grimly. "Exactly. But there's hope." He held up the data crystal. "The synthetics have provided us with crucial information about Nexus operations and weaknesses. And more importantly, we've developed this." With a gesture, Kyle brought up schematics for the anti-assimilation field. This prototype technology, developed in collaboration with the synthetics, can shield our ships and installations from Nexus takeover attempts. The council erupted in a flurry of questions and exclamations. Captain Simmons raised a hand for silence. "Kyle, what do you propose?" "We need to act fast," Kyle replied. "I recommend we immediately begin retrofitting the station and our fleet with this technology. It's our best defense against the Nexus's most insidious weapon." The council quickly approved the plan, and Kyle found himself thrust into the heart of a massive engineering effort. The station hummed with activity as teams worked around the clock to implement the new defenses. Kyle was in the middle of overseeing the installation of a new shield generator when alarms blared throughout the station. He raced to the command center, where a grim-faced Captain Simmons was studying a tactical display. "Multiple Nexus attacks reported across Allied sectors," Simmons reported. "They've launched a coordinated offensive. It looks like your alliance with the synthetics got their attention." Kyle's mind raced, assessing their options. "We need to deploy the prototype defense platforms to our most vulnerable allies," he said. "Use their enhanced mobility to create a defensive network. And we'll turn the station into our command and control center." As Kyle coordinated the defensive efforts, reports began trickling in from the front lines. Allied ships equipped with the anti-assimilation field were successfully repelling Nexus attempts to override their systems. A cheer went up in the command center at the news. But Kyle knew better than to celebrate too early. "They'll adapt quickly," he warned. "We need to stay ahead of them." As if on cue, new reports arrived indicating that the Nexus was shifting tactics, relying more on conventional warfare. Kyle had anticipated this and was ready with his next innovation. "Deploy the quantum entanglement communicators," he ordered. "Let's give our fleet the edge in coordination." The battle raged across multiple star systems, with the station at the heart of it all. Kyle worked tirelessly, coordinating defenses, analyzing Nexus tactics, and pushing the limits of their new technology. In the midst of the chaos, an urgent transmission cut through. Kyle's heart raced as he recognized the signature of a Crixian outpost on the fringes of known space. "Captain Kyle," the Crixian commander's voice crackled through the speakers. "We've discovered something. An artifact of unknown origin. It's emitting energy signatures similar to Nexus technology, but different. We need immediate assistance to secure and retrieve it." Kyle's mind whirled with the possibilities. Could this artifact be the key to turning the tide against the Nexus once and for all? He quickly made his decision. "Commander Dax," he called out, "assemble a team. You're going to retrieve that artifact. Be prepared for anything." As Dax's team departed, Kyle turned his attention back to the station's defenses. He initiated the implementation of a new shield system, one that utilized synthetic biotechnology principles to allow the station's outer hull to regenerate and adapt to different types of attacks. The Nexus, seeming to recognize the station as the focal point of resistance, began to concentrate its forces for a massive assault. Kyle, his eyes narrowed in perseverance, set his bold plan in motion. "Prepare for station mobilization," he ordered, his voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. "We're taking this fight to them." As the massive structure of the station began to move, becoming a mobile battle platform, Kyle unveiled his latest weapon system, a hybrid of human plasma technology and synthetic energy manipulation techniques. The Nexus fleet approached, their ships casting ominous shadows against the backdrop of space. Kyle stood at the command center, his hands steady on the controls, ready to face the oncoming storm. Just then, a priority communication came through from Commander Dax's team. They had secured the artifact and were en route back to the station. But there was a complication. The artifact had begun to activate, emitting pulses of energy that seemed to interfere with Nexus technology in its vicinity. Kyle's mind raced, formulating a plan to use this unexpected development to their advantage. He quickly issued new orders, coordinating the artifact ship's approach with the ongoing battle. As Dax's ship neared, Kyle prepared to integrate the artifact into the station's power systems, hoping to amplify its effects. The outcome of the battle, and perhaps the entire war, now hinged on the next few moments. Kyle's fingers flew over the controls, making final preparations to receive the artifact. Outside, the void of space lit up with the fire of battle, the Nexus fleet bearing down on them with terrifying force. But as the artifact ship drew closer, a spark of hope ignited in Kyle's chest. Whatever happened next, he knew it would change the course of their conflict forever. Kyle's fingers flew across the control panel, initiating the final sequence to receive the artifact. The station shuddered as another volley from the Nexus fleet impacted its shields. He glanced at the tactical display, watching as Commander Dax's ship weaved through the chaos of battle, drawing ever closer to the station. "Engineering team," Kyle called out, his voice steady despite the tension. "Prepare the containment unit. We need to be ready the moment that artifact is on board." As he spoke, Kyle's mind raced through the integration process they devised. The hybrid containment unit, a marvel of human ingenuity and synthetic technology, stood ready in the main lab. Its intricate network of energy conduits and amplifiers gleamed under the harsh lighting, waiting to channel the artifact's power. The station rocked again, and Kyle gripped the edge of his console. He keyed in a series of commands, adjusting the station's position to present a smaller target profile to the incoming fire. The massive structure responded smoothly, its new maneuverability a testament to the synthetic enhancements they'd integrated. Dax's ship entering Hangar Bay 3, a technician announced. Kyle nodded, already moving. "Lock down all non-essential systems. Divert power to shields and life support. I'm heading to the hangar." He sprinted through the corridors, the station's crew moving with practiced efficiency around him. As he entered the hangar, he saw Dax's team already unloading their precious cargo. The artifact sat on a hovering transport pad, its metallic surface covered in swirling, luminescent patterns. Even from a distance, Kyle could feel the power emanating from it, setting his teeth on edge. "Move it to the lab now," he ordered, falling in step with the transport team. As they made their way through the station, the artifact's influence became more pronounced. Nearby screens flickered, and Kyle noticed several Nexus-derived systems experiencing temporary failures. In the lab, Kyle personally oversaw the transfer of the artifact into the containment unit. The sphere pulsed with increasing intensity as it was lowered into place, its glow reflecting off the anxious faces of the assembled team. Initiating power integration, Kyle announced, his hands dancing over the control panel. The containment unit hummed to life, energy conduits lighting up one by one. The artifact's pulsing intensified, syncing with the rhythm of the station's power grid. For a moment, everything seemed to be proceeding smoothly. Suddenly, alarms blared as the artifact's energy signature spiked dramatically. Sparks erupted from several consoles, and the lights throughout the lab flickered ominously. "Power surge detected," a technician shouted. "Multiple systems overloading." Kyle's mind shifted into overdrive. "Activate emergency protocols. Reroute power through secondary systems, now." His fingers flew across the controls, implementing failsafes and redirecting energy flows. The station's biotechnological components, gifts from their synthetic allies, began to adapt to the artifact's output, gradually stabilizing the power fluctuations. As the immediate crisis passed, Kyle allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But there was no time to relax. The battle outside still raged, and now they had a weapon that could turn the tide. "Prepare to activate the amplified disruption field," Kyle ordered, his voice filled with willpower. With a final command, Kyle unleashed the artifact's power. A massive wave of energy radiated outward from the station, engulfing the surrounding space in a shimmering field of disruption. The effect on the Nexus fleet was immediate and devastating. Ships closest to the station went dark, their systems completely overloaded. Those at the edges of the energy wave floundered, their once coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. Kyle wasted no time pressing their advantage. "All Allied ships, target the disabled Nexus vessels," he commanded over the comm channel. "Station weapons, fire at will." The hybrid weapon systems, now supercharged by the artifact's energy, lashed out with unprecedented force. Beams of coruscating energy sliced through Nexus defenses like paper, leaving smoldering wrecks in their wake. As the tide of battle turned decisively in their favor, Kyle's attention was drawn to a new alert on his tactical display. A massive shape was decloaking at the edge of the system, a Nexus Command ship of unprecedented size. "New contact," Kyle shouted, studying the readings with growing concern. It shielded against the artifact's effects. "All ships, prepare for incoming fire." The Nexus Command ship wasted no time, unleashing a barrage of advanced weaponry that tested the limits of the station's enhanced defenses. Kyle watched with a mixture of pride and anxiety as the regenerative hull absorbed and adapted to the attacks, but he could see the strain it was putting on their systems. As he assessed their options, a daring plan began to form in Kyle's mind. It was risky, potentially suicidal, but it might be their only chance to deal a decisive blow against the heart of the Nexus Command structure. Kyle keyed in the comm channel to the station's Leadership Council. "I have a plan," he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of what he was about to propose. "But I need your approval, and we need to act fast." As he outlined his strategy, using the station's synthetic-derived propulsion system to perform a short-range jump directly alongside the Nexus Command ship, Kyle could sense the mix of shock and consideration from the council members. After a tense moment of deliberation, Captain Simmons' voice came through the channel. "Do it, Kyle. We're trusting you on this." With the green light given, Kyle sprang into action. "Engineering, prepare for short-range jump. Weapons, I want every system hot and ready the moment we reappear. All personnel, brace for extreme maneuvers." As the massive Nexus Command ship grew larger on the display, launching waves of fighter craft and intensifying its barrage, Kyle finalized the jump calculations. His hands hovered over the controls, every muscle tense, waiting for the perfect moment. "Now!" Kyle shouted, slamming his hand down on the jump initiator. The station vanished from its position amidst the chaotic battle, reappearing an instant later directly alongside the towering bulk of the Nexus Command ship. For a fraction of a second, there was an eerie silence as both sides registered the sudden change in positions. Kyle broke the silence with a single command: "Fire everything." The station's artifact-enhanced weapons unleashed their full fury at point-blank range. Energy beams and hybrid missiles slammed into the command ship's hull, piercing through its formidable defenses. At this range, even the artifact's disruptive field penetrated the enemy's specialized shielding, wreaking havoc on its internal systems. Alarms blared throughout the station, warning of multiple systems operating beyond safe parameters. Kyle knew they couldn't maintain this assault for long, but they had to press their advantage while they had it. As the Nexus command ship began to break apart under the onslaught, Kyle detected a surge of energy building within its core. His eyes widened as he realized the implications. "They're initiating some kind of self-destruct sequence," he warned, already plotting their next move. "We need to get clear before—" His words were cut off as a blinding flash erupted from the heart of the Nexus command ship. The shockwaves slammed into the station, sending personnel tumbling and overloading systems across the board. As the initial chaos subsided, Kyle pulled himself back to his feet, his ears ringing and vision blurry. He squinted at the tactical display, trying to assess their situation amidst the swirling debris and lingering energy discharges from the explosion. The Nexus command ship was gone, leaving behind a rapidly expanding field of wreckage. But as Kyle zoomed out on the display, he realized their battle was just the beginning. New contacts were appearing at the edges of the system, Nexus reinforcements, no doubt drawn by the destruction of their command vessel. Kyle gritted his teeth, his mind already racing to formulate their next move. The station had taken a beating, but they'd struck a significant blow against the Nexus. Now, they needed to capitalize on their victory before the enemy could regroup. As he began issuing orders to repair teams and coordinating with allied ships, Kyle knew that the next few hours would be crucial. They had the artifact. They had proved the effectiveness of their new technologies, but the Nexus was far from defeated. The true test of their innovations and alliances was yet to come. Come. Kyle's fingers danced across the control panel, initiating a series of rapid-fire commands to stabilize the station systems and assess the damage from the Nexus command ship's destruction. The tactical display flickered to life, revealing the aftermath of their daring maneuver. The space around them was littered with debris from the destroyed command ship, but Kyle's eyes were drawn to the new contacts appearing at the edges of the system. "Nexus reinforcements," he muttered, his mind already racing to formulate a response. Before he could issue new orders, alarms blared throughout the command center. Kyle's eyes widened as he saw the cause. The artifact's energy output was fluctuating wildly, threatening to overload the station's carefully calibrated systems. "Engineering report," Kyle barked into the comm. "The artifact's integration is destabilizing," came the strained reply. "The power draw from our attack has pushed it beyond safe parameters. We're at risk of a catastrophic overload." Kyle's mind raced through possible solutions. They couldn't afford to lose the artifact's power, not with Nexus reinforcements bearing down on them. In a split-second decision, he keyed in the emergency power transfer protocol. "Reroute power from all non-essential systems to the artifact's containment unit," he ordered. "Prioritize life support and shields, but everything else is secondary." As the engineering team scrambled to implement his commands, Kyle felt the station shudder. The tactical display updated, showing a new threat emerging from the remnants of the Nexus command ship. "Repair drones," Kyle shouted, recognizing the swarm of small, agile machines converging on the station. "Activate point defense grid now." The station's outer hull lit up as the enhanced defense systems came online. Beams of energy lashed out, vaporizing dozens of the incoming drones. But the swarm was too numerous, too relentless. Kyle watched in growing alarm as several drones evaded the defenses and attached themselves to the station's hull. "Hull breach detected in sections 12 through 15, a technician reported, her voice tight with tension. "The drones are cutting through." Kyle's fingers flew over the controls, activating the station's newest line of defense. "Deploy internal security robots to all affected areas." Seal off adjacent sections and prepare for potential decompression. On the security feeds, Kyle watched as the sleek, hybrid defense robots raced through the station's corridors. They engaged the intruding Nexus drones in a series of lightning-fast skirmishes, their advanced weaponry proving effective against the alien technology. But even as the internal threat was being contained, Kyle knew they were far from safe. The Nexus fleet, though battered, was regrouping. He could see them adapting to the artifact's disruptive field, launching coordinated strikes against the Allied ships. "We need to end this," Kyle muttered, his mind working furiously. An idea began to form, risky, but potentially decisive. "Engineering, I need you to reconfigure the artifact's energy output," he commanded. "Focus it into a narrow, high-intensity beam. We're going to cut through what's left of that command ship like a scalpel." As the engineering team worked on the recalibration, Kyle opened a secure channel to Commander Dax. "Commander, I have a mission for you. We're going to teleport you and a strike team directly onto the Nexus command ship. Your objective: find and disable their central control node." Dax's reply was immediate and resolute. "Understood, sir, my team is ready." Kyle watched the power readings carefully as the artifact's energy was channeled into the new configuration. The station groaned under the strain, systems flickering as power was diverted to fuel this last, audacious attempt. "Artifact beam ready," engineering reported. "Teleportation systems online," another technician chimed in. Kyle took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the command interface. "Dax, prepare for transport. All Allied ships, clear the target zone. On my mark, execute." In a flash of energy, Dax and his team vanished from the station, rematerializing deep within the bowels of the wounded Nexus command ship. Simultaneously, a brilliant beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the station, slicing through the enemy vessel's exposed power core. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Nexus command ship's remaining systems went haywire, internal explosions visible through the gaping holes in its hull. But as Kyle watched the chaos unfold, a new alarm caught his attention. Massive energy spike detected in the Nexus ship. A sensor operator shouted, "Sir, I think they're initiating a self-destruct sequence." Kyle's blood ran cold. If that ship detonated at this range, it could take out not just the station, but a significant portion of the Allied fleet. He opened the channel to Dax's team, his voice urgent. "Commander, the ship is set to self-destruct. You need to find and disable that mechanism, now." As Dax acknowledged the new objective, Kyle faced a critical decision. The artifact, still their most potent weapon against the Nexus, was also their greatest vulnerability. If they kept it integrated with the station's systems, they risked total destruction. But if they jettisoned it, Kyle's hands moved almost of their own accord, initiating the artifact's emergency detachment sequence. "Prepare tractor beams," he ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We're going to throw that artifact right into the heart of the Nexus ship." As the station's crew rushed to execute his commands, Kyle's attention was drawn to a flashing indicator on his console. An incoming transmission, marked with the highest priority. The source, the synthetic homeworld. With the fate of the battle hanging by a thread, Kyle opened the message, knowing that its contents could change everything. The war against the Nexus was about to enter a new phase, and the next few moments would determine whether humanity and its allies would be there to face it. The message from the synthetic homeworld flashed on Kyle's screen, demanding his attention. But as he reached to open it, a violent shudder rocked the station, throwing him against the console. "Status report," Kyle shouted, pulling himself upright. "Sir, the Nexus command ship is initiating a self-destruct sequence." A sensor operator called out, her voice tight with urgency. "Estimated detonation in 2 minutes." Kyle's mind raced. The message would have to wait. He keyed in the emergency detachment protocol for the artifact, his fingers flying across the controls. "Prepare tractor beams," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We're going to throw that artifact right into the heart of the Nexus ship." As the crew scrambled to execute his commands, Kyle's eyes locked onto the readout, displaying the artifact's energy signature. Suddenly, he noticed something strange, a series of complex pulses emanating from the device. "Hold the launch," Kyle called out, his hand hovering over the final command. The artifact. "It's trying to communicate." He quickly redirected the station's sensors, focusing them on decoding the energy patterns. The hybrid human-synthetic computer systems hummed to life, processing the data at lightning speed. "Engineering report," Kyle barked into the comm, multitasking as he monitored the artifact's output. "Multiple systems approaching critical failure, sir," came the strained reply. "We can't maintain this level of output much longer." Kyle gritted his teeth, aware of the clock ticking down on the Nexus ship's self-destruct. He opened a channel to Commander Dax's team, still fighting their way through the enemy vessel. "Dax, abort mission. Get your team to the extraction point now." As Dax acknowledged the order, the artifact's energy pulses suddenly aligned into a coherent pattern. The station's computers began translating the information, revealing a set of coordinates deep in uncharted space. Kyle's eyes widened as he realized the implications. This could be the key to understanding the artifact's true nature, and perhaps the entire conflict with the Nexus. With seconds to spare, Kyle made a decision that would change the course of the war. "Engineering. Reintegrate the artifact into our systems. Reconfigure for long-range jump using these coordinates." The engineering team worked frantically, rerouting power and recalibrating systems. Kyle watched the Nexus ship's countdown tick closer to zero, sweat beading on his forehead. "Dax, we're jumping in 10 seconds. Stand by for emergency teleport." The station's enhanced teleportation system hummed to life. In a flash of energy, Dax and his surviving team members materialized on the bridge, their armor scorched and battered. "Jump sequence initiated," Kyle announced, his hand slamming down on the activation control. A sphere of brilliant energy engulfed the station, generated by the artifact's power. In an instant, they vanished from the battlefield, leaving behind the exploding Nexus command ship and its devastating shockwave. The jump was unlike anything they had experienced before. Kyle felt as if his very atoms were being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Warning klaxons blared throughout the station as multiple systems failed under the strain. With a bone-jarring lurch, they emerged from the jump. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the bridge in an eerie red glow. "Damage report," Kyle called out, fighting off a wave of nausea. "Multiple hull breaches, life support at 60%, weapons offline," a technician rattled off. "But we're alive, sir." As the crew worked to stabilize critical systems, Kyle directed the station's remaining functional sensors to scan their surroundings. What they revealed left him speechless. Floating before them was a massive structure, an ancient space station of clearly alien design. It dwarfed their own facility, its architecture unlike anything they had ever encountered. The artifact pulsed in response to the alien station's presence, its energy signature resonating in perfect harmony. "Assemble an exploration team," Kyle ordered, his mind already racing with the possibilities. "We need to know what's inside that station." As the team prepared for their expedition into the unknown, Kyle finally had a moment to access the message from the synthetic homeworld. His eyes widened as he read its contents, realizing that their unexpected jump may have placed them at the center of a pivotal moment in the war. The exploration team assembled on the bridge, a mix of engineers, xenobiologists, and security personnel. Kyle briefed them quickly, aware that time was of the essence. "What we find on that station could change everything," he concluded. "But we're not just exploring. We're racing against time. The Nexus is planning a major offensive, and we might be the only ones who can stop it." As the team prepared to depart, Kyle looked out at the ancient alien structure looming before them. Whatever secrets it held, he knew that the next few hours would shape the fate of the entire galaxy. Galaxy for decades to come. Kyle tore his eyes away from the alien station and focused on the immediate tasks at hand. "All right, people, we need to move fast," he announced, his voice cutting through the buzz of activity on the bridge. "I'm assembling a crisis management team. We've got two priorities: exploring that station and preparing for a potential Nexus offensive." He turned to Commander Dax, who was still catching his breath from the harrowing escape. "Dax, I need you to lead the exploration team. Take our best engineers, xenobiologists, and security personnel. We need to know what's inside that structure." Dax nodded, his eyes gleaming with willpower. "We'll get it done, sir." As Dax moved to assemble his team, Kyle addressed the rest of the crew. "Engineering, I want you to repurpose parts of the artifact's containment unit. We need to boost our long-range communication capabilities. The Allies need to know about the stolen synthetic technology and the Nexus threat." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as crew members rushed to carry out Kyle's orders. He watched as Dax's team boarded a modified shuttle, equipped with enhanced scanning and communication equipment. The shuttle's engines flared to life, propelling it towards the massive alien structure. Kyle's attention was drawn to the main view screen as the shuttle approached the station. A shimmering energy field became visible, surrounding the ancient construct. He held his breath as the shuttle made contact with the field, then exhaled in relief as it passed through unharmed. "Shuttle to control." Dax's voice crackled over the comm. "We've passed through some kind of energy barrier. Most of our advanced systems are offline, but life support and basic functions are still operational." "Understood, Commander," Kyle replied. "Proceed with caution. Keep us updated on any findings." As Dax's team began their exploration, Kyle turned his attention to the station's repairs. He made his way to engineering, where the crew was working frantically to stabilize critical systems. "Report," Kyle ordered as he entered the bustling engine room. Chief Engineer Talia wiped sweat from her brow as she approached. "We're making progress, sir, but it's slow going. The jump did a number on our power systems. We've got multiple hull breaches sealed, but life support is still only at 70% capacity." Kyle nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. What if we integrated some of the Nexus technology we salvaged from previous battles? Could that help stabilize our systems? Talia's eyes widened. "It's risky, so we don't fully understand their tech. But," she paused, considering the possibilities, "if we can interface it correctly, it could give us a significant boost in power and defensive capabilities." "Do it," Kyle ordered. "I'll oversee the integration myself. We need to be ready for anything." As they worked on incorporating the alien technology, Kyle's communicator buzzed. It was Dax. "Sir, you need to see this." The commander's voice was filled with awe. "We've found a central chamber. There's some kind of crystal structure here, massive in size. It's pulsing with energy patterns similar to our artifact." Kyle's heart raced. "Document everything, Dax. This could be the key to understanding the artifact's true nature." Suddenly, Dax's voice rose in alarm. "Sir, the crystal, it's activating. The entire chamber is lighting up." The communication cut off abruptly, replaced by a flood of incoming data. Kyle rushed back to the bridge, where holographic displays were materializing, filled with swirling patterns of light and information. "It's similar to the synthetic language," Kyle muttered, his eyes darting from one display to another. "This station. It could be the origin point of both synthetic and Nexus technologies." As the implications of this discovery began to sink in, a new alarm blared through the station. Kyle's head snapped up to the main view screen, where multiple jump signatures were appearing. "Nexus configurations," the tactical officer reported, her voice tight. "A full battle fleet. Sir, they've found us." Kyle's mind raced, assessing their options. Their station was still recovering, in no shape for a direct confrontation. But the alien station— "Battle stations," Kyle ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "And get me Dax. We're going to use that alien station as our defensive position." As the crew scrambled to prepare for combat, Kyle's eyes locked onto the approaching Nexus fleet. At its head was a ship unlike any he'd seen before, overflowing with advanced weaponry. He knew without a doubt that it carried Zeta-9, the renegade synthetic, and the stolen technology that made this fleet more dangerous than ever. The battle for the alien station was about to begin, and with it, perhaps the fate of the entire war. Kyle took a deep breath, steeling himself for the conflict ahead. Whatever secrets the ancient structure held, he was determined to uncover them, and use them to turn the tide against the Nexus once and for all. Kyle's eyes narrowed as he assessed the approaching Nexus fleet. The massive alien station loomed beside them, its secrets still largely unknown. He opened the channel to Dax's team. "Commander, what's your status?" Static crackled for a moment before Dax's voice came through. "Sir, we've made contact with some kind of control interface. It's responding to our dash." Suddenly, the alien station thrummed with energy. Massive compartments along its exterior slid open, revealing an array of formidable energy cannons. The central crystal structure pulsed with power, feeding the newly awakened defense systems. Kyle's mind raced, quickly formulating a strategy. "Helm, bring us into position between the alien station and the Nexus fleet. We're going to act as a relay." As his crew scrambled to comply, Kyle turned to his chief engineer. "Talia, I need you to synchronize our artifact with the alien station's weapons. Use it as an amplifier to coordinate our firing patterns." Talia's fingers flew across her console, interfacing their systems with the ancient technology. The artifact hummed, its energy signature aligning with the distant crystal structure. "Synced and ready, sir," Talia reported. Kyle nodded. "All weapons, prepare to fire on my mark." The Nexus fleet approached, their formation tight and weapons primed. At their lead was a ship overflowing with advanced weaponry, undoubtedly Zeta-9's command vessel. "Fire!" A storm of energy erupted from both stations, their synchronized attack catching the Nexus fleet off guard. The first volley tore through the enemy's front line, disabling several ships and vaporizing others. Alarms blared as the Nexus retaliated, concentrating their fire on Kyle's station. The shields flickered under the assault. "Zeta-9's regrouping," the tactical officer called out. "They're focusing on us, sir." Kyle gritted his teeth. "Initiate emergency power redistribution. Divert all non-essential systems to shields and weapons." Throughout the station, corridors plunged into darkness. Life support systems in peripheral sectors powered down to minimal levels. But the shields held, a shimmering barrier against the Nexus onslaught. As the battle raged, Kyle's calm crackled to life. It was Dax, his voice tight with urgency. "Captain, we've found some kind of database. The information here, it's beyond anything we've seen. But there's a problem. We've triggered some kind of dash." The communication cut off abruptly. Kyle tried to reestablish contact, but to no avail. "Sir," Talia called out, her face pale. "The alien station's gone into lockdown. Commander Dax and his team are trapped inside." Kyle's mind raced, weighing his options. The battle hung in the balance, but the potential knowledge within the alien station could be the key to ending the war. "Talia, assemble a team, work on breaking through that lockdown, and reestablishing communication with Dax," Kyle ordered. "I'll coordinate the defense from here." As Talia rushed to comply, the artifact began to pulse erratically. Energy surged through the station's systems, pushing weapons beyond their design limits, but threatening to overload critical components. Kyle moved to the power distribution controls, manually adjusting the energy flow. He redirected excess power, channeling the artifact's surges into weapon fire while preventing system overloads. Sweat beaded on his brow as he worked, every decision potentially life or death. A new alarm blared, and Kyle looked up to see a swarm of attack drones launching from the Nexus fleet. These were unlike anything they'd encountered before, their movements unnaturally precise and effective. "Evasive maneuvers!" Kyle shouted, but the drones were already upon them. They slipped through gaps in the defensive fire, targeting key weapons emplacements and shield generators. Kyle's mind raced, searching for a solution. His eyes fell on a maintenance bot scuttling along the floor, and an idea formed. Engineering. Repurpose our maintenance bots. Arm them with whatever we can cobble together, and deploy them as a defensive swarm. Minutes later, a horde of jury-rigged defense drones poured from the station's hangars. They engaged the Nexus swarm in a chaotic melee, buying precious time for Kyle's crew to repair and regroup. Amidst the chaos, Talia's voice cut through. "Sir, we've partially bypassed the lockdown. I have Commander Dax on the line." Dax's voice came through, filled with static but audible. "Captain, we've accessed critical data about the station's creators and their tech, but we can't transmit it or leave our current location." Kyle processed this information, a daring plan forming in his mind. He looked at the alien station, then down at the pulsing artifact. "Talia, prepare for full integration with the alien station. We're going to use the artifact as a bridge between our technologies." As his crew rushed to implement this risky strategy, long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. Kyle's face hardened as he recognized the energy signatures. Nexus reinforcements were on their way. The battle was nowhere near the end, and Kyle knew that his next decisions would shape not just their immediate survival, but the course of the entire war. He took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was to come. "All hands," he called out, his voice resolute. "Prepare for Phase 2. 2 of his most daring plan yet." The approaching Nexus reinforcements left no room for hesitation. "Engineering. Prepare for full integration with the alien station," Kyle ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We're going to physically connect our structures." Talia's eyes widened. "Sir, that's incredibly risky. We'll be exposed during the process." "I know," Kyle replied, his teeth clenched. "But it's our best chance at unlocking the station's secrets and surviving this assault." As the engineering team scrambled to initiate the integration process, Kyle redirected power from the artifact to bolster their shields. The protective bubble shimmered around the station, buying them precious time. "Deploy extendable docking arms," Kyle commanded, "and prepare energy tethers for rapid deployment." The station shuddered as massive mechanical arms extended towards the alien structure. Beams of concentrated energy shot out, forming a web of glowing tethers between the two stations. Kyle's communicator crackled to life. It was Dax, his voice urgent but filled with excitement. "Captain, we've made a breakthrough. There's a defense system here capable of generating an energy field that could neutralize Nexus weapons." Kyle's pulse quickened. "That's exactly what we need, Commander." "What's the catch?" "It requires access to multiple control points spread throughout the station," Dax explained. "We'll need teams to reach them all simultaneously." Kyle nodded, already formulating a plan. "Understood. I'm sending engineering and security teams to assist. Use maintenance tunnels and emergency access ways to bypass the lockdown." As Kyle coordinated the station-wide operation, the Nexus fleet launched a concentrated assault. Energy beams lanced towards the vulnerable connection points between the stations. "Zeta-9's targeting the linkage," the tactical officer shouted. "Our drones can't hold them off." Kyle's mind raced. He glanced at the life support readouts, making a split-second decision. Evacuate non-essential areas. Reroute all available power to generate a localized energy field around the connection points. Alarms blared as entire sections of the station went dark. Crew members rushed through corridors, crowding into the remaining habitable areas. The energy field flickered to life just as another volley of Nexus fire reached them, the attacks dissipating harmlessly against the barrier. With a physical link established, Kyle initiated the integration of their systems. The artifact pulsed with increasing intensity, its energy suffusing both stations. Suddenly, the structures began to change. Corridors reshaped themselves. New rooms materialized, and disparate technologies meshed together in ways that defied conventional understanding. "Sir," Talia called out, her voice filled with awe. "The integration. It's creating hybrid systems I've never seen before." Before Kyle could respond, Dax's voice came through again. "Captain, we're at the control points. Initiating the defense system now." The entire station complex hummed with building energy. A massive field expanded outward, enveloping both structures and a significant portion of surrounding space. As the Nexus reinforcements arrived, their weapons fire dissipated harmlessly against the protective bubble. Kyle allowed himself a small smile. "All weapons, target the Nexus fleet. Let's show them what our new hybrid systems can do." The integrated weapons unleashed a devastating barrage. Nexus ships, their shields useless against the unfamiliar energy signatures, fell one after another. Kyle watched as Zeta-9's flagship retreated, the synthetic leader clearly caught off guard by this turn of events. As the immediate threat subsided, Kyle turned his attention to understanding their new capabilities. "Begin comprehensive scans of all systems. I want to know everything these stations can do." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the crew worked to unravel the mysteries of their new home. Meanwhile, Dax and his team continued their exploration of the alien structure, uncovering vast repositories of historical data. "Captain," Dax reported, his voice filled with excitement, "this information. It could be the key to understanding the artifact's true nature and its connection to both synthetic and Nexus tech." Kyle nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Good work, Commander. We'll need time to process all of this, but it could change everything." As the crew worked to stabilize their newly merged systems, long-range sensors lit up with unusual energy signatures. Kyle leaned forward, studying the readings intently. "These signatures," he murmured, "they're similar to our artifact and this station. There could be more outposts out there." Kyle's eyes narrowed as he contemplated their next move. The integrated station complex provided them with unprecedented power, but he knew Zeta-9 and the Nexus forces would return, likely with new strategies of their own. The captain stood, addressing his crew. "We've won a significant victory today, but our work is far from finished. We need to understand every aspect of this technology and locate those other outposts. The key to defeating the Nexus could be hidden within these ancient systems." As Kyle spoke, the artifact pulsed with renewed energy, as if responding to his words. The captain placed his hand on the alien console, feeling the power thrumming beneath his fingers. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they now had a fighting chance. The race to unlock the secrets of the ancients had begun, and Kyle was determined to see it through to the end. And Kyle's eyes swept across the bridge, taking in the determined faces of his crew. The integrated station hummed with newfound power, a testament to their recent victory. But there was no time to rest on their laurels. "Commander Talia," Kyle called out, "initiate a galaxy-wide scan using the artifact's energy signature as a baseline. We need to locate every outpost we can." Talia nodded, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Scan initiated, Captain. It'll take some time to cover the entire galaxy, but we should start seeing results soon." Kyle turned to his chief engineer. "Start adapting our propulsion systems." I want the station mobile as soon as possible. Combine our FTL tech with the alien drive capabilities we've uncovered. As the crew set to work, alarms blared across the bridge. Kyle's comm unit crackled to life, filling the air with urgent reports from Allied forces across the galaxy. Captain, a harried voice cut through the chaos. Nexus forces are launching coordinated attacks on multiple fronts. They're hitting shipyards, research facilities, everything. Kyle's eyebrows furrowed. He'd expected Zeta 9 to retaliate, but not on this scale. Put it on screen, he ordered. The main view screen lit up with a tactical map of the galaxy, red indicators flashing at key strategic locations. Kyle studied the pattern, his mind racing. They're trying to cripple our infrastructure, he muttered. We need to respond fast. Kyle turned to his tactical officer. Assemble rapid response teams. Equip them with our latest hybrid tech and send them to the most critical locations. As the teams deployed, Kyle focused on coordinating the defense efforts. He directed Allied ships to reinforce key positions, using the station's advanced communication systems to maintain real-time contact across vast distances. Hours passed in a blur of tactical decisions and crisis management. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Reports flooded in of Nexus forces being repelled, their attacks faltering in the face of the new hybrid technology. Amidst the chaos, Talia's voice cut through. Captain, we've got something. The scans picked up an energy signature matching the artifact. Coordinates coming through now. Kyle nodded. Commander Dax, he called over the comm. Prep your team. You're heading to our first outpost. As Dax's expedition prepared to depart, Kyle turned his attention back to the ongoing battles. He watched as Allied forces, bolstered by the rapid response teams, pushed back against the Nexus offensive. Days passed, marked by constant activity and little rest. Kyle coordinated efforts across the galaxy from the integrated station, directing forces and managing resources. Each victory against the Nexus forces felt hard-won, but they were making progress. Then a breakthrough. Dax's voice, tinged with excitement, came through the comm. Captain, we've done it. The outpost is online. Before Kyle could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display lit up, showing a massive disruption rippling through nearby Nexus forces. Sir, the tactical officer called out, Nexus ships in the sector are going dark. Their systems are failing. Kyle leaned forward, studying the data pouring in. It's the outpost, he realized. Its activation is disrupting Nexus tech. As he processed this information, another idea struck him. Kyle turned to Talia. Cross-reference the energy signatures from all identified outposts. Look for patterns, connections. Talia worked quickly, her eyes widening as the results came in. Captain, there's a clear pattern. If we activate all the outposts, the combined energy field could potentially neutralize Nexus technology across the entire galaxy. Kyle's mind raced with the implications. This could be the key to ending the war. He began issuing orders, reorganizing their forces to focus on locating and activating the remaining outposts. As Allied ships spread out across the galaxy, Kyle felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the war began, they had a clear path to victory. But Zeta 9 was not about to go down without a fight. As more outposts came online, the Nexus launched a desperate assault on Kyle's station. The attack came suddenly, catching them off guard. Evasive maneuvers, Kyle shouted as enemy fire rocked the station. Divert power to shields. The battle raged fiercely. Kyle's crew fought valiantly, but the sheer number of Nexus ships was overwhelming. A particularly vicious barrage tore through their defenses, causing massive damage to the propulsion systems. Kyle gritted his teeth, assessing their options. With their mobility limited, they were vulnerable. But they couldn't abandon their position. It was too strategically important. "Hold position," Kyle ordered. "We'll use the station as a bulwark. Buy time for the other teams to finish activating the outposts." As the crew battled to keep the station intact, a strange transmission cut through the chaos. Alien symbols scrolled across the screens, accompanied by an otherworldly signal. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message. Origin unknown, but it's coming from a distant sector." Kyle stared at the incomprehensible symbols, a mix of curiosity and trepidation washing over him. "Get our linguists and cryptographers on it immediately. This could be important." With the station under heavy fire, outpost activation teams spread across the galaxy, and a mysterious alien transmission to decipher, Kyle knew they were entering the most critical phase of the war. He set his jaw, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The destiny of the universe hung in the balance, and Kyle was determined to see this through to the end. And the future of the stars hung in the balance, and Kyle knew their next moves would be critical. As Zeta 9's forces intensified their assault on the integrated station complex, Kyle's mind raced through potential strategies. Suddenly, his chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we've managed to restore partial mobility to the propulsion systems." Kyle's eyes lit up. This was the opportunity they needed. "Excellent work. Bridge crew, prepare for emergency maneuvers." With practiced precision, Kyle guided the massive structure towards a nearby asteroid field. The station groaned under the strain, but held together as it glided into position among the dense cluster of space rocks. Zeta 9's ships, caught off guard by the sudden movement, were forced to break formation and adjust their attack patterns. Kyle watched with grim satisfaction as the Nexus fleet struggled to regroup. "Sir," Talia called out, "incoming transmission from Commander Dax's team." Dax's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mix of excitement and urgency. "Captain, we've done it. The next outpost is coming online now." As Dax spoke, a brilliant pulse of energy erupted from a distant point in space. The wave washed over a cluster of nearby Nexus ships, causing their systems to flicker and fail. Kyle leaned forward, his mind racing with possibilities. "Commander, accelerate the activation of the remaining outposts. These energy pulses could be the key to turning the tide." As Kyle coordinated the outpost activation efforts, the cryptography team made a breakthrough. The lead analyst rushed onto the bridge, tablet in hand. "Captain, we've partially decrypted the alien transmission. It contains coordinates to an uncharted system and fragmented instructions for activating some kind of master control hub for the entire network." Kyle's eyes narrowed as he processed this information. "Dispatch a scout ship to those coordinates immediately. We need to know what we're dealing with." As the scout ship sped away, Kyle's attention was drawn back to the ongoing battle. His engineers had made another critical discovery. "Captain," the chief engineer reported, "we've analyzed the energy patterns from the activated outposts. We think we can create localized disruption fields to neutralize Nexus tech within a limited area." Kyle nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. "Implement it immediately. Focus on our defensive systems first." The station's shield shimmered as the new technology came online. The next wave of Nexus attacks dissipated harmlessly against the enhanced barrier. Hours passed in a blur of tactical decisions and crisis management. Finally, the scout ship returned, bringing with it news that could change everything. "Sir," the scout leader reported, "we found a massive, dormant structure unlike anything we've seen before. Initial scans suggest it could be the master control hub mentioned in the transmission." Kyle absorbed this information, recognizing its potential to end the war decisively. He turned to his second-in-command. "Prepare a strike team. I'll lead it myself." As preparations for the mission began, Zeta 9 launched a desperate new offensive. Nexus ships deployed a weapon capable of generating localized singularities, threatening to tear the station apart. Divert all available power to structural integrity, Kyle shouted as the station shuddered under the assault. The engineering team worked frantically, pushing their hybrid technology to its limits to counter this new threat. Slowly, they gained ground, their adapted shields holding against the onslaught. Amidst the chaos, the linguistic team completed the full translation of the alien message. The lead linguist's voice was grave as she delivered her report. Captain, the message warns of a cyclical nature to this conflict. It suggests that the original creators of the Outpost network faced a similar enemy eons ago. This war, it may be part of a repeating pattern across galactic history. Kyle absorbed this revelation, its implications weighing heavily on him. But there was no time for contemplation. He focused on finalizing the plan for the strike mission. The team assembled quickly. Engineers, xenobiologists, and security experts, all handpicked for their skills and experience. Their ship, a hybrid of human, alien, and reverse-engineered Nexus technology, stood ready in the launch bay. As Kyle prepared to board, reports flooded into more activated outposts, each one further weakening the Nexus forces. Pockets of space where their technology was rendered inert began to appear across the galaxy. With a final nod to Commander Dax, now in charge of the station's defense, Kyle and his strike team launched towards the uncharted system. They employed a series of complex FTL jumps, their advanced navigation systems allowing them to slip past Nexus patrols with ease. As they approached the massive structure housing the master control hub, unusual energy readings began to appear on their sensors. The dormant station stirred, ancient systems coming to life in response to their presence. It's reacting to our ship, Kyle realized. The hybrid tech must be triggering some kind of recognition protocol. The strike team's ship touched down on the colossal space station, dwarfing even the integrated complex they had left behind. As they disembarked, the cavernous interior stretched out before them, filled with technology beyond their wildest imagination. Suddenly, automated defense systems sprang to life. Energy barriers materialized, cutting off their path. Strange, mechanical constructs emerged from hidden compartments, their intentions unclear, but certainly not friendly. "Stay alert," Kyle ordered, his voice tense. "We need to find a way to the central chamber." As they navigated through the station's labyrinthine corridors, each obstacle more challenging than the last, Kyle couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on them. They were walking in the footsteps of an ancient civilization, one that had faced and ultimately succumbed to a threat not unlike their own. The strike team pressed on, their combined expertise allowing them to overcome each security measure they encountered. But time was running out. Back at the integrated station, Commander Dax and the rest of the crew fought desperately against Zeta-9's renewed assault, knowing that everything depended on Kyle's success. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of hacking through alien firewalls and deciphering complex logic puzzles, they reached the central chamber. Before them stood an enormous, pulsating core, the heart of the entire outpost network. Kyle stepped forward, his hand hovering over the alien interface. He knew that his next action could determine the fate of not just this war, but potentially the course of galactic history itself. With a deep breath, he prepared to make contact with the ancient technology, fully aware that whatever happened next would change everything. Everything. As Kyle's hand made contact with the alien interface, a surge of energy pulsed through the chamber. The core flared to life, its pulsating glow intensifying. But before Kyle could delve deeper into the system, a shimmering energy barrier materialized, pushing him back. "Sir, it's some kind of genetic lock," one of the team's xenobiologists called out, scanning the barrier with a handheld device. The system's looking for specific markers, likely those of the original creators. Kyle's mind raced, searching for a solution. He turned to the chief engineer. "The hybrid tech on our ship, could we use it to mimic the genetic signature?" The engineer's eyes lit up, It's possible but risky. We'd need to calibrate it precisely. Do it, Kyle ordered. We're running out of time. As the team rushed back to their ship to gather the necessary equipment, Kyle's communicator crackled to life. Commander Dax's voice came through, strained and urgent. Captain, our situation is critical. Zeta, 9 has breached our outer defenses. We're implementing emergency protocols, evacuating non-essential personnel to the core. Kyle's teeth clenched. Hold on, Dax. We're close to a breakthrough here. Back in the central chamber, the team worked feverishly to assemble the genetic mimicry device. Kyle watched the progress, acutely aware of each passing second. Finally, the chief engineer gave a nod. It's ready, sir. Kyle activated the device. The energy barrier flickered, its pattern shifting. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, the barrier dissipated. We're in, Kyle breathed, stepping forward. As they approached the core interface, holographic projections sprang to life around them. Images of an ancient civilization, technological marvels, and devastating conflicts played out before their eyes. Kyle scanned through the information, his eyes widening. This conflict. It's happened before. The Outpost network was their last resort against a Nexus-like threat. He delved deeper into the data, uncovering the true nature of the system. It can generate a galaxy-wide energy field, neutralizing the threat entirely. But the cost. Before he could finish, another transmission from Dax cut through. Captain, they've adapted to our disruption fields. We can't hold out much longer. Other outposts are reporting heavy attacks. Kyle looked at the core, then back at his team. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. With a deep breath, he made his choice. Initiate the activation sequence, he ordered. The hub rumbled to life, energy coursing through its ancient systems. Kyle and his team worked frantically, calibrating the output to target the Nexus while minimizing damage to allied technology. As the energy built, the structure began to groan. Alarms blared, warning of imminent system failure. Sir, it's destabilizing, the chief engineer shouted over the noise. The hub wasn't meant to survive this. Kyle nodded grimly. Get to the ship. I'll finish the sequence. His team hesitated, but a stern look from Kyle sent them running. He turned back to the controls, rerouting power and bypassing failing systems. The hub shuddered violently. Kyle's hands flew over the alien interface, pushing the systems to their limit. A final transmission came through from Dax. Captain, it's working. The Nexus ships are going dark. We're launching a counteroffensive. Kyle allowed himself a small smile before focusing on the task at hand. The core pulsed with blinding intensity, the chamber beginning to collapse around him. With the final calibrations complete, Kyle sprinted for the exit. The corridors twisted and buckled as he ran, debris raining down. He burst into the hangar just as the last shuttle prepared for takeoff. Kyle leaped aboard, shouting, "Go! Go!" The shuttle shot out of the hangar as the hub's core detonated. A massive shockwave of energy erupted, catching the small craft in its outer edges. Kyle was thrown against the bulkhead as the shuttle tumbled through space. Alarms blared throughout the craft. Kyle dragged himself to the controls, fighting to stabilize their trajectory. The hybrid system sparked and sputtered, struggling against the onslaught of energy. As the initial wave passed, Kyle managed to bring the shuttle under some semblance of control. He ran a quick systems check, his heart sinking at the results. Communications were down, and most of the advanced systems were offline. Through the view screen, Kyle watched as the lingering energy field rippled across space. The Nexus threat had been neutralized, but at what cost? Kyle turned his attention to the shuttle's remaining functional systems. He began to assess the damage, his mind already formulating plans for repairs and survival. As he worked, He glanced out at the unfamiliar stars surrounding him. Well, he muttered to himself, looks like the next challenge is finding my way home. With drive, Kyle set about his task, knowing that somewhere out there, his allies were waiting. The galaxy had changed, but humanity's spirit of perseverance remained. Kyle allowed himself a small smile as he began the long process of bringing the shuttle systems back online, one by one. One by one, the shuttle's life support system struggled to maintain a breathable atmosphere as Kyle worked tirelessly, his fingers flying over the makeshift control panel he had assembled from salvage parts. Days passed, each one bringing new challenges. Kyle rationed his dwindling supplies, pushing himself to the limit as he fought to keep the shuttle operational. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before him, a constant reminder of the isolation he faced. On the fourth day, Kyle's improvised distress beacon crackled to life. He had ingeniously tapped into the residual energy from the galaxy-wide pulse, amplifying the signal far beyond its normal capabilities. Kyle held his breath, hoping against hope that someone would hear his call. As the oxygen levels in the shuttle reached critical lows, Kyle's eyes began to droop. He shook himself awake, forcing his mind to focus on the task at hand. Just as he was about to give in to exhaustion, a faint ping echoed through the shuttle's comm system. Kyle's heart raced as he scrambled to isolate the signal. Through the static, he recognized an allied frequency. With renewed vigor, he diverted the last reserves of power to the thrusters, guiding the battered shuttle towards the source of the transmission. The journey seemed to stretch on forever, each moment filled with tension as Kyle nursed the failing systems along. Finally, a massive fleet of ships appeared on his view screen. At its center, Kyle spotted a familiar sight. The integrated station complex, now mobile and serving as the fleet's flagship. As his shuttle approached the hangar, Kyle felt a wave of relief wash over him. The tractor beam engaged, guiding the craft to a gentle landing. The moment the airlock cycled open, Kyle was engulfed by a sea of cheering faces. Commander Dax pushed through the crowd, her face beaming with a mixture of relief and admiration. "Welcome back, Captain," she said, clasping Kyle's hand. "You've missed quite a bit." Over the next few hours, Dax brought Kyle up to speed on the aftermath of the Master Control Hub's activation. The Nexus forces had indeed been neutralized, their technology rendered inert across the galaxy. However, the pulse had also affected much of the advanced technology used by allied civilizations, forcing a period of rapid adaptation and rebuilding. "Your actions at the hub didn't just defeat the Nexus," Dax explained as they walked through the bustling corridors of the station. "It unlocked a wealth of knowledge from the ancient civilization that created the Outpost network. We've been using that information to rebuild, developing new technologies that are immune to the lingering effects of the pulse." Kyle absorbed this information, his mind already racing with possibilities. "I want to help," he said, his voice firm with tenacity. "We can use what I learned at the alien station, combine it with this new knowledge. We can do more than just rebuild. We can push our technology further than ever before." Dax smiled, nodding in agreement. "I was hoping you'd say that. We've got a lab set up for you. The engineering teams are eager to work with you." Over the following weeks, Kyle threw himself into the work. He drew on his experiences from the alien station, blending that knowledge with the newly acquired ancient wisdom. Under his guidance, the Allied forces began to restore and enhance their capabilities, surpassing their pre-war technological levels. The integrated station complex became a hub of innovation and progress. Kyle's reputation grew, and soon he found himself being referred to as the Rebuilder, a title that reflected his journey from stranded engineer to the architect of a new era. As the reconstruction efforts progressed, Kyle proposed an ambitious plan to the Allied leadership. He suggested an expedition back to the original alien station, where his adventure had begun. "There might be more we can learn," he argued. Systems that were dormant before might have been activated by the pulse from the Master Control Hub. The proposal was approved, and soon Kyle found himself leading a team back to the familiar yet mysterious station. As they approached, Kyle's breath caught in his throat. The station had undergone a remarkable transformation, its exterior now pulsing with vibrant energy patterns. Upon docking, Kyle and his team ventured into the station's depths. They discovered newly accessible sections, filled with advanced fabrication systems and energy generation methods that far surpassed anything previously known. As Kyle examined a particularly intricate piece of technology, a realization struck him. "This station," he said, turning to his team with excitement in his eyes, "it's not just a relic. It's a template, a blueprint for a new generation of space habitats. We can use this to build structures capable of sustaining life in even the harshest environments." The implications of this discovery were staggering. Kyle's mind raced with the possibilities, envisioning a network of these advanced stations spread throughout the galaxy. Each one would serve as a beacon of civilization, fostering cooperation between different species and ensuring that no single catastrophe could ever again threaten all of galactic society. With renewed purpose, Kyle began to formulate a plan. He would propose the construction of a new station, one that incorporated all the knowledge and experience he had gained throughout his journey. It would be a marvel of engineering, blending the best of human ingenuity, alien wisdom, and the technological heritage of multiple civilizations. As Kyle sketched out his initial designs, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had led him to this moment. From a stranded engineer facing certain death to the architect of a new galactic civilization, his story embodied the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. With perseverance in his eyes, Kyle turned to his team. "Let's get to work," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "We've got a galaxy to rebuild."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.